And I will invite the clerk to call the roll.
Supervisor Brown,
Here.
Supervisor McCowan,
Here.
Supervisor Pinches,
Here.
Supervisor Jurdy,
Here.
Chair Hamburg.
Here. And since you're right up front, JR, I'll ask you to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is public expression. I'm going to call you up again, JR.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the board, my name is J.R. Rose, staff. First of all, I want to thank you very much for your legislation part. I listened to our Congressman Jared Hoffman, and he said one of the first things on the agenda that you were asking for was for senior citizens, laws to protect senior citizens, and I want to thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate that, especially since that's what I've been working on for quite a long time. But what I'm kind of in amazement is, and what kind of throws me, is that I'm sitting here and I'm sitting at home. I haven't been around here very much, and I'm watching a lot of what's going on around the country and around the world. And this gun control thing has gotten me kind of confused. I don't know where you guys are at it. I have no idea what you're thinking of it or what it can be. But I'm sitting and I'm thinking that there's over 5,000 laws on just the federal books alone that are not enforced. And I'm looking about two to three PowerPoints. One is we've seen what happened in schools and stuff, and yet the shooters there were not people that would be covered under these laws. They would fall through the cracks. And then I think what happened here in our own county of Mendocino with Jerry Menlo and what happened there. And as you know, Dan, we've been working on mental health for a long, long time, and it's an ongoing thing. And without mental health, you're going to have a problem. And there you get into what your psychiatrist will give to the police, whether they will classify it as privileged information or whether they won't classify it as privileged information. So I don't know how you're going to win one way or the other. And then let's talk about finances. As you know, everybody's strapped. And yet, you're going to pass a law, this country is going to pass a law for background checks on people. Excuse me, I'm hitting here pretty close. Well, we're going to pass a law on background people, and who's going to pay for this? You're cutting your law enforcement down. So who investigates this? Does the sheriff investigate it? Does the district attorney investigate it? Who investigates these people locally and stuff? Where's the help going to come from? As a gun owner and a man that's fought 2 wars, I'll tell you, it scares the hell out of me because I can't see what benefit this is. It's where we're going to go. How can you pass laws that you can't enforce? The city is full of guys, people down there. Every morning I get up, I turn the news on, and they're shooting each other. Gangs are shooting each other, shooting people, killing little kids. People, guns are going by. If you can't control the guns that the outlaws have, how are you going to control it by taking it away from people like me and other people who possibly could? Because the laws aren't written for us to protect ourselves away from the criminals and stuff. If you see it, and it goes on all the time, if you take and actually defend yourself at a home, it isn't a criminal that goes to jail. It's a common citizen that's trying to defend his home and property against these kind of people. So I think you need a little common sense when you pass these kind of laws. And one of the other reasons I'm coming to tell you this is that I won't be here no more. After 9 years, I'm tired. I'm going to retire. And you guys won't have to worry about coming up saying, "Oh boy, here he comes again. Do we have to listen to him or not?" And
Well, we'll miss you. We'll miss you, JR.
Listen to me because I'm going to be at home. I'm not going
Okay.
to be here. I'm not going to be bending your ears.
Okay.
I thank you for passing the resolutions that we
Okay.
passed. It got me started here in 2009, even though it took me 5 years to get the resolution passed. But I have got 3 passed in 3 different counties and quite a few cities around. And we did get 1 rent control law within the city of Ukiah. So that's what I'm going to say. So you folks have a great life. You try to do the right thing. Remember, it's not always expedience, and it's not always to it, but as long as you think it's the right thing to do, sometimes it works that way. So I hope you guys do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, JR. And I know you'll be in touch with Supervisor McCowan as the season goes along. Okay, anyone else for public expression this morning? Okay, if not, thank you very much. And we will move on to the consent calendar. And I need to ask the clerk if proper notice has been established.
Proper notice has been established, yes.
Okay. Okay. Are there items that board members would like to pull from the consent calendar this morning?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull 4O.
Okay.
I have a question on P, but we don't need to, because Howard's coming.
And Howard's going
I
to
don't
come
need to
down.
pull it, it's just a question.
Okay. So O and P. Anything else, Supervisor McCowan? No, you-
Mr. Chair, I'll move
Yeah.
approval of the balance of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, is there a second? Any discussion? Anyone in the public care to comment on the consent calendar? Okay, if not, all in favor of adopting the consent calendar, save items O and P.
No,
Sign-
I'm pulling P.
Oh,
I
I-
just got a question on it.
Okay.
You don't need to pull it.
All right, just pulling item O then. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If you oppose, signify by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. And let's just go straight over to item O.
Thank you, Mr.
Supervisor
Chair.
Brown, yes.
We have to wait for Department of Transportation Director.
Okay, for
I'd
that
like to
one, too.
ask the CEO to contact him.
Yeah,
Yes, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Brown, Mr. Dashiell and I discussed this yesterday, and we also had a phone conference on this item, and he was planning on being here right now during the consent item, so I'm not quite certain what the holdup is, and I don't know, Clerk, if we have heard from Director Dashiell this morning.
We confirm that he is on his way presently.
Okay.
okay. I think we can go then to the next item on the agenda, and if we need to, we'll just stop that and get Howard taken care of, or get our concerns with Howard taken care of. Item 5C is discussion possible action regarding Mendocino County membership in RCRC, including approval of the county being a member of RCRC's affiliate or association CHF, which is the Home Buyers Fund, and appointment of a board member, delegate, and alternate to represent the county in RCRC and CHF. And Christy Furman is here to introduce this item.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Christy Furman, County Executive Office. As the board will recall, you authorized renewing the county's membership in RCRC at your meeting of March 26th. We will be working with RCRC staff to, at their April Board of Directors meeting, to accept Mendocino County as a new member, and we will budget within the board's budget unit the membership dues for the upcoming fiscal year. RCRC did say that they'd be willing to represent the county at no cost for the remaining months of our fiscal year. One of the follow-up items for our renewed membership is to consider whether the county would like to become a full voting member of the CHF rather than remaining as an affiliate or associate member. And then depending upon the board's action on that item, we would ask the board to consider appointment of a board delegate as well as a board alternate to serve on both the RCRC Board of Directors and the CHF Board of Directors. Excuse me. It is customary that board member representatives that are appointed to serve our counties on the CSAC Board of Directors most often are also appointed as the delegate to RCRC. That's not a requirement, but it is customary for the member counties to follow that practice. If the board is ready to take action today to appoint the members, we would ask that we work with the clerk of the board staff to schedule the renewal of the RCRC appointment at the same time to coincide with the CSAC Board of Directors appointment in the fall of each year, because to align and position for officer membership compatibility and nomination in December, we would want these renewals to happen at the end of the calendar year. So that would be an advisory directive if this board so chose. Excuse me. There is no cost to become a voting member of the CHF. They do have one annual meeting. RCRC staff serves as the executive staff to the CHF board as well. So there wouldn't be a burden, as we understand it, for our board representative to attend frequent meetings of that board, but they would meet at least once a year. Included within the packet of materials today, you have a copy of the JPA for the CHF. You have a copy of the RCRC bylaws, as well as the travel reimbursement policy. Our board member and alternate would be reimbursed for a majority of the travel-related expenses associated with RCRC business. And so we do not anticipate active membership and attendance at the meetings as being a drain on the board's budget unit. So those are the high-hit items of today's agenda item. Also contained within the packet is an annual list of the RCRC Board of Directors meetings. They hold most meetings in Sacramento. There are 7 meetings a year. The annual meeting is typically held in the Lake Tahoe region, centrally located. And I'd respond to any questions or provide additional information.
Thanks, Christy. Before we go into board questions, I want to ask Howard to come up and handle these 2 items that were questioned on consent. One item was actually pulled off the consent calendar, and the other one, Supervisor Pinches just had a question for you. So do you want to just come up and deal with those, and then we can let you get back to work?
Why don't you go with your question first?
Okay, Supervisor Pinches had a question regarding, I believe it was item P.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead with that?
Howard, how do we
Supervisor?
gain 2.95 miles?
Is this on? Now it's on. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, Board.
Morning,
Howard
Howard.
Shield, Director of Transportation. When the mileposts were done in history, they were basically clocked off odometers on pickup trucks. And now with GIS, is the more we go through the road, maintain miles every year, and we work with Caltrans, we find these little discrepancies in mileage. So it really is this year. Last year, we actually changed the maintain miles. We added a little, took some out. This year, we're literally just cleaning up what I'll call, differences in better measurements. So
We actually have, 2013.7 miles?
correct.
That's the,
Correct.
okay.
That's what happened.
That's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And moving back to item O, Supervisor Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director DeShield, for being here this morning. The reason I pulled this particular item, and actually it was pulled from the consent calendar at our previous meeting, I think that we all need to understand it better. There has been a change in the law through legislation that went through, and I know you had opposed the legislation, and down the road, even when CSAC withdrew their opposition because of amendments that were made, you still opposed it. And, well, you had strong feelings about it. And so anyway, on March 25th, I have 2 memos here. And one is from March 25th from Sally Riley. She is the Senior Field Representative for the Construction Industry Force Account Council. And actually, it was to Lee Howard, and I received a copy of it. And then there's a new memo as of yesterday from Ms. Riley. And she points out that perhaps we do not want to go forward with this item as you have presented. And I just feel we need to have some explanation about it, because I do know that, you know, you can get strikes against yourself as a county. It's kind of like the 3-strike law. And if you get 3 strikes against you, I believe it's in a 10-year period, but it may be shorter. You can lose your status in the California Uniform Cost Accounting Commission. So I just need to have, explanation, and I think this board needs to know where we're headed and why, and what might be the consequences. So anyway, thank you.
You bet. You're correct, through the chair, you're correct that I did, along with really just about all the county road commissioners around the state. There were some that, there's only 33 that are in QCAC. Some of the urban areas do no work with their road crews. They only do maintenance. So, but of the counties that were more rural that did work, we did all oppose it. But as I said in the agenda summary, on July 26, 2011, I brought the item to you withdrawing opposition when I, working with the CSAC ledge staff, worked out the compromise. So while you're right, I opposed it all the way through, I did come to you because I was asked to, and I did agree to the compromise and had that removed. So yeah, compromise never leaves everybody with what they'd like. I did not get the March memo from Sally Riley. I saw the email from Lee Howard, but I didn't see the March memo. I did get the memo this morning, and I did spend Carmel and I on the phone with Ms. Riley yesterday for probably an hour talking about this piece, and it became real apparent to me that we really do see it kind of differently. I did respond with my own comments back, but you might not have them yet, so I brought a copy of my email. If you'd like, Tim, well, okay, you've got copies. I could brought copies too, so. And I'll just go ahead and read my email. That way it'll be on the record that way. And I did also, Tim wants to pass this out. There were 2 things in yesterday's email from CFAC that were germane. One was the fact that my item didn't list another section of Public Contract Code 22031, and I can see the point for that. So I went ahead and added that in, and I've got a revised agenda summary and reso, Tim, if you want that. Should be enough for everybody, plus a few for the audience. The way I see it is, there's a place in law that talks about how you do public contracting under what they call QCAC or Cupcake or different acronyms for that, uniform cost accounting. And then there was another place in law where we had the road commissioner defined. That was in 2395, and for over 50 years that's been what this county's used and referenced, and it was allowed. The amendment that was made, and I put it here in the email, basically says in Public Contract Code section 22031B2 that new road construction and road reconstruction, as long as the total annual value of new road construction and road reconstruction performed under the procedures set forth in subdivision C of section 2395 does not exceed 30% of the total value of work performed by force account other than maintenance as reported in the State Controller's Streets and Roads annual report as of January 1st each year. That section refers back, and I put in red, performed under the procedure set forth in section 2395. My understanding of the compromise is before road commissioners, you might say, had unlimited no limits on how much they could do with county forces. We accepted a 30% limit, but it says performed under the procedures in that old section, 2395. So the way we understood it, and I still think what the law says, but our county council's here, so I'll let him weigh in, that we can do it the old way up to 30%. And that's our cutoff. So, you know, that was our compromise on the bill. Her memo, Ms. Riley's memo, seems to say that we have to follow a procedure in the new KUCLA, and I just disagree with that. I think we can still use the procedure that we always used up to 30%. So I guess we just have a difference of opinion. That's where we were basically yesterday on the conference call too. And I think that the reso before you is not going to get us a strike. I don't want a strike either. In fact, I would recommend that we take this to the KUCLA commission ourselves if there's any uncertainty and hash it out, because if I don't do a declaration the way I understand it, we'd be subject to a strike if, in fact, I do work with the road crews, and I probably already have this year, you know, that would be in violation. So I'm almost like trying to cover for something that's already maybe happened. Probably not much, because we've been doing mostly winter maintenance. So I know you just got this, but I'll try to submit the questions. But I do believe in the compromise, and I did agree to the compromise, and I did bring to the board removal of our opposition. But I just think we disagree in the interpretation of the law. I mean,
Supervisor Brown?
Yes, I
follow-up.
think, well, I'd like to, yeah, do a follow-up, but I believe other
Please do.
questions. Well,
I was just gonna,
I think that we need to table this and to, well, to pull it and have Mr. DeShiel go to the commission, to have them look at it. I don't want any strikes against us. 10 years is a long time, and you may not want to have a strike, and maybe go forward on something that you think it wouldn't be a strike against the county, and it turns out to be. I mean, I don't know all the authority process or who decides whether it's a strike or not. I just feel it's extremely important to get it right.
Supervisor McCowan?
Well, I certainly agree with that, and I think Director DeShiel partly answered one question. This is time sensitive because this law applies now, and we need to have something in place that declares what we're going to do so that what we're doing is covered under the law. But I am a little uncomfortable that there's this difference of interpretation between the Construction Industry Force Account Council, particularly Sally Riley, who's very well versed in the force account issues in my experience, and I wonder if County Council has reviewed this, and I see he has at least our agenda book open. He's got another book open, but so what's your opinion, if we may?
Go ahead, County Council.
Thank you, Chairperson, members of the board. I was expecting this question to come up. I did review this material that was available last week. This morning I reviewed the additional email material that Mr. DeShiel sent to me, as well as to others. I'm going to give you a lawyerly answer, and I'm going to give you as strong an answer as I can give you, but it's not one of those 100% guaranteed things, because we don't give those kinds of answers. I think they're the better legal argument, but certainly I'm not guaranteeing what a court would say if a court was called upon to answer the question. I think I tend to agree with Mr. DeShiel's interpretation. And I think that passing the document that is before you on item 4O as an Oscar would give the sufficient advance statement of the intent of the board to say that that the board has to announce it's going to use some portion of that up to 30% force labor value before each particular work project strikes me as inane. And I just can't believe that people, even the state legislature, as they were considering this, it really intended that. Now, I could be wrong, and a court could say that what I'm telling you today sounds nice, but is not the law. But I think the better legal argument is with Mr. DeShiel's position. But I can't guarantee you what a court will say.
Supervisor McCowan? Okay.
I had a comment. We'll go to
Okay, well,
someone else.
let's go to Supervisor Pinches and then Supervisor Brown and then go back over here.
First of all, I hate to, I wouldn't be for anything that's actually going to restrict our, especially with tight money, to restrict our road crews from doing a small project if they can. So my first question would be, how do you value this 30%? I mean, is that a dollar value, or is that road work actually hours to do the project, or equipment hours, or how's this 30% based upon? Because there can be a big difference between a contract value or what it actually costs you to have your road workers do a project.
The answer to that is it is really complicated, and when this bill passed, shortly after, I don't have my thing right in front of me, but shortly after July in 2011, CSAC and the county engineers started writing up formulas and worksheets and working with the state controller's office on how to implement it. To put it in real simple terms, Supervisor Pinches, you basically take all the county forces, including your admin people and your engineers and your road crew people, and you add up all the work they do, excluding maintenance. Maintenance is excluded, and that becomes the denominator of the equation. And then you take two categories out of the state controller's report, because the construction industry said, we really want to limit what the crews do for new construction, new road construction, and road reconstruction. And most of the road reconstruction is asphalt pavement overlays over an inch. That's really the crux of the issue. And they said 30%. So let me just tell you in real general terms, for Mendocino County, that sets a limit of around $1 million. $1 million will pave at 2/10 of an inch, 3 inch, 2/10 of a foot, 3 inches, about 5 miles of road. On any given year, depending on what the road department has after the end of a winter. For instance, this year, we didn't have the potholes because we had a drought. So we got a little more money, and we'll probably do some more paving. In fact, I'll probably come to you with a contract to hire a contractor to do some paving, because we saved some money this winter because we had a drought. But depending on how things are, we never spend more than $1 million. It's usually $500,000, even less. So to answer your question, the 30% limit, and probably the reason I withdrew opposition when that compromise was reached, is it really won't affect what we typically do on the road crews. It also affects realignment of road. For instance, the state controller last year on the Usaw Road project, which I know the board's familiar with, where we outsloped the road and changed the road, they considered that reconstruction, and it got reported there. It was $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, but well within that $1 million. It didn't really restrict us. So we could go out and do small realignments. The road crews don't do much, but it won't really restrict us.
So that's accumulative throughout the year, or not?
Correct.
Per project?
Throughout the year.
Okay, so last winter we had a culvert failure on Reynolds Highway. So you went and you got your road crew to go in and fix it. So that wouldn't impede that ability to do some project like that in-house?
No, it wouldn't. In fact, that's one of the real important things I changed as we negotiated. If you look at the law, it doesn't affect maintenance or emergency. But in the case of that culvert, that's considered storm drains, and it's not affected. Basically, the industry said, we're not after your culverts. They're really after the paving. That's what they really want to regulate, and they would like to see the paving out for bid.
So when the county bought a little paver, that kind of scared them, I guess. That
I don't know. We've had it quite a while, but it was a statewide initiative. It wasn't really a Mendocino County specifically.
So we're really talking about not much here.
Well, yeah, I think it's a workable law, but the thing that gets me, if this declaration had what she wrote in this email from last night, how do I want to say this? Our side immediately put out position papers and impact papers and shared those of how we interpret it, and I've written letters back and forth to their organization. It just seems like getting it the morning before, it seems like if they thought it should be, and I'm not sure they're sure from reading their email. If they can show me in the law, we'll look at it, or if we need to go to the commission, we'll go to the commission, but I think we thought it out pretty clearly on our side.
But you stand behind this resolution.
I stand behind it. And if I'm wrong, if there's a way we can, I think maybe even the commission would look at the fact that it was ambiguous and maybe not give us a strike. And they're not even saying they're going to take us to the commission, but I'm interested to see how the commission works, because I was named as an alternate this last year to the Uniform Cost Accounting Commission. The county members from San Luis Obispo, I'd like to go and listen and testify and learn about it. So, but I think this is okay. I don't want to strike either.
Supervisor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Hamburg. And County Council, it's my understanding other rural counties have not had a problem, and neither has the Construction Industry Force Account Council with what has been passed in other counties, which, they haven't commented on. But they are watching. So, it's, I guess we're the first to step out and have something different.
Actually, we're not.
Tulare County.
Yeah.
Tulare County has stepped out before us.
But Riverside has not?
Riverside is doing it a little different. They're doing they submitted their pavement overlays and put those out directly, what they were doing for pavement.
And, but it's also my understanding other rural counties have gone forward with what the council has recommended.
Well, I haven't heard that. All I can tell you is most of the rural counties, the law is limited to counties over population 50,000.
Correct.
So a lot of the rurals aren't covered.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the urban counties have come out with letters saying we don't do any new road construction or reconstruction. Their crews virtually do zero. So a lot of counties have come out and said that of the urban and suburban. I know a few counties, I'll just tell you right now, I have colleagues in counties similar to us that are awaiting what you do today, and I will write up some guidance and send them an example of what we did here today, just so they'll know. Everyone's wanting to learn and see what works. I looked at what Tulare County did, although I had submitted my item before Tulare County did theirs and it was pulled. We're all trying to learn how to do this. That's why well, anyway, it doesn't sound to me like CFAC's sure what we should do either. So I guess we're all figuring it out.
Supervisor McCowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, there seems to be agreement that on projects under $45,000, there's no requirement to make an advance declaration. So the only thing that seems to be at issue is whether the department should declare in advance of a project that it thinks will cost $45,000 or more. What is the location and the estimate of the cost of the work to be done? So is that really a burden to say, we think this project is going to hit the $45,000 threshold, and here's what we think that the total is likely to be?
It really is a burden, and that's why the county engineers fought so hard to keep the old 2395 method in place. 45,000 will barely pave 300 feet of road. It's just, you take this year, we're looking at our little patch paved jobs we do around the county. we'll be lucky to get 1.5 miles done here and there. You know, my triage that I've explained to the board, and that'll come to $500,000 right there, which is half our limit. It's a drop in the bucket.
So then if you're having to declare in advance for, 3 or 4 or 5 projects, is what's the burden?
Well, there's a couple things. For one thing, I don't want to do 300 feet at a time and then splice them together. And there's a little thing that CFAC accused the city of Ukiah of and other places, something called bid splitting, which, by the way, is a misdemeanor. So that's a really big deal to me. I get a criminal charge against me, I lose my licenses. So that's a huge deal. So again, that's why we fought so hard to keep this the old way for up to 30%. We accepted the limit, but we want the old way. I might add the 45,000 limit is the rules that I follow in the closed landfills and at the airports. I mean, I totally get it. We do almost all contracting at the landfills and the airports, and any maintenance we do, I use road crew people because I have virtually no maintenance staff left for those functions. So we have to be real careful, and if I took the road crew into the airport or the dumps and did a project, I'd be subject to QCAC and we'd be subject to a violation. So, I get that. But we really, I think, need it on the road. That's why we fought so hard for that compromise.
Well, no one's saying you can't have it. The only issue seems to be, should we have a policy that says projects 45,000 and above, we would declare that in advance. And on that specific point, County Council, you did review that specific point, and you agree with Director DeShiel that as long as overall we're below the 30% threshold, that is in compliance with the law.
Yes, and a statement that the plan for the county is to do no more than 30%. I think that one-time statement by the board suffices for the advanced language that has been added to the Streets and Highways Code.
Okay, I'd like to go back to Supervisor Brown. How would you like to proceed with this item?
Well, I know how I'd like to proceed, so.
Well, see if you've got 2 more votes.
Okay, well, I still would like to follow what I believe is being recommended by the Construction Industry Force Account Council, because I don't want to be in a court. And so I believe we need to make the changes that are necessary, and hopefully our Director of Transportation will work with them and come back with a resolution that will work, where they're not going to be opposed.
Supervisor Pinches.
Well, I don't agree with that, and I've said for many years now that when you have a crew that's in the talk about the cost, when you pay them in by the month and you own the equipment, what does it really cost to do a small project? And we're talking about, I just don't want in any way restrict the ability of our road crews. First of all, the biggest morale booster in our road maintenance department, our road crews, is when they get up in the morning and go do something on their job. They hate to feel restricted if we can't do this. And I just feel, and maybe it's not there, but I don't want to do anything that requests Howard or his road crews from doing a small project that they have the capability and the time to do, because a lot of these projects we're just focusing on seems like paving, but we have over 600 miles that don't have pavement on it, and I don't want to put any restriction on those when there's a small little thing that needs to be done. They say, well, we don't really know if we can take this slide out this morning because it's really the value of it might accumulate and be in violation of this force account. And so I guess I'm focusing on the 600 miles that aren't paved. I mean, and we haven't exactly been, because of the cost of asphalt and whatnot, we haven't exactly been running our paver. Actually, in this county, we only get about 6 months of weather that you can pave.
So you're willing to roll the dice?
I don't think it's rolling the dice, but in some certain things, maybe it's too strong a language to say pushing the envelope, but if that's what we're doing, if that's the way you feel we're doing it, I'm willing to push the envelope. Because, we have roads out there. I mean, even our state senators is sitting in an area where her roads are labeled the worst in California. So certainly in Mendocino County, we got to do something to change that. And it's nice to cave in, I guess, to the big contractors that want all the work and everything, but there's small things that we can do, and especially I focused on the 600 miles of unpaved roads we have. And I don't want this 30% to build up, and this resolution gives us maybe a small bit of leeway, but it does give us some leeway.
Do you want to put that in the form of a motion, Supervisor Pinches?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, and we're talking about the substitute resolution that was handed out this morning. Okay, is there a second to the motion? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, can I just confirm that Supervisor Brown had not made a previous motion?
She did not.
It was just
Is there a second to Supervisor Pinch's motion to adopt the resolution as presented this morning by Mr. DeShiel? Supervisor Jurdy.
Well, I'd like to approve the resolution, but I'm also hearing concerns that sound legitimate that we ought to try to get some feedback from the commission first. So I guess what I'm wondering is, could we send a letter asking the California Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Commission, informing them that we would like to adopt this resolution as amended, but we would like some guidance from them. If
Mr. DeShiel?
Like I said, I'm not that familiar. I've been reading their website when I was an alternate and found that they maybe meet once or twice a year. So I don't know when they'll meet again. Sorry. I don't know when they'll meet again. It could be that it has to be brought forward. Well, there's two things we do. Either we just stop doing road commissioner style work so that we're sure we're safe. And in a way, what that does is give CFAC what they really wanted. They would like us to conform to the $45,000 limit and do small projects. And I mean, it gives them what they wanted. And my thing was the compromise was real clear that we got the 30%. So I guess, Supervisor Jurdy, it's been 2 years now almost, and the CSAC side have published impact papers and put out literature, and we've really explained it. And it seems like at the last minute they're just saying you'll get in trouble if you do this. I don't. It just seems like they could give us a little bit more than a kind of a maybe this will be a violation.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor Jurdy?
it sort of does.
Supervisor Pinches.
Well, Howard, you bring up a good point. We compromised them in the first place to 30%. And now, according to this email, that's basically not enough. They want more of it. So, we have a recommendation from our county council to back up this resolution from our Director of Transportation. I mean, if those people don't know what they're doing, maybe we should get rid of them. I mean, we have to, I think we have to back them up. And like I say, it's real important to me because I'm looking out after the 600 miles of dirt road we have, and a lot of it's in my district, and I don't want anything. This is already I feel is going to impede this compromise at the 30% is going to impede the ability for them to do. Howard, how many times have I sat down with you and say, Howard, I want you to do more little projects, right?
That's true, but I did look back over 10 years, and we rarely went over 30%. I don't think it's going to impede us too much.
That's why I'm still hammering on you.
I know.
Okay. Because we haven't even come close to the 30%, and now you want them to, that's a good compromise. We want to back off more than that. Why don't we just all sell the trucks and go home?
Okay, I just want to say that at this point, we do not have a motion on the floor because Supervisor Pinch's motion died for lack of second. That doesn't mean he can't make the motion again, but for right now, we have nothing on the floor.
So moved. I'll make the motion again.
Okay, Supervisor Pinches has offered his motion again. Is there a second this time around?
I'll second the motion.
Supervisor Jurdy seconds the motion. Do you have a comment, Supervisor?
I do. maybe a bit of a compromise would be to have the motion to approve the amended resolution, but also direct staff to contact the California Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Commission to seek guidance as to their interpretation of the law. And perhaps also see if the California State Association of Counties, which was involved very heavily, I think, in the initial legislation, to see if their legal staff has an opinion on this.
Okay. I think that could be direction to staff, should the motion pass. Mr. DeShiel.
Yeah,
wait a second.
I do know from the spring conference that CSAC decided the counties were not unified on how to approach this declaration, and they've already published that they're not going to take a position there. It's going to be, there are some counties, I will just tell you, that feel the road commissioner can do the declaration unilaterally. I'm not going to say which counties, but I know some counties are doing that. I felt I should bring it to the board, at least a public forum. But,
Yeah, and a consent item that's only taken 20 minutes
I'm
so far.
sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, do you want that part of the motion, or would you rather make that a?
No, I wanted it, I mean, you know, my word is not absolute here, obviously, but I think that can be what Supervisor McGowan suggested. I think can be direction to the Department of Transportation, and he can then get back to the board with any reply we get to that correspondence. So I would like to go ahead with a vote on the motion, and let's vote by the button.
Motion passes with Supervisor Brown dissenting.
Okay, Mr. DeShiel, since you're here, why don't we handle 5H? I'm sorry.
It is clear, though, that we are going to seek an opinion from
Yes, I think that is clear. Okay,
I welcome that. seeking an opinion.
Okay, and you will come back to the board with the answer. Okay,
Chair Hamburg?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make one comment. Thank you, Director. I meant no disrespect. I just feel very strongly, very nervous about this.
It was confusing at the state level. We got that letter from CFAC in February, all of us counties, and we've been trying to figure out how to deal with it.
Okay, let's go over to the Director of Transportation reports. Howard, do you have anything you want to comment on outside of what was written?
No, I just want to make sure the board realizes my first item is Caltrans has once again done an 85th percentile speed survey, this time in Highway 20 approaching Fort Bragg. I guess I turn to Supervisor Jurdy. There is a provision in law that the board could ask Caltrans to come here to this chamber and explain that to you. But if I don't hear back from you, or if you don't want me to schedule such a hearing, I'll tell Caltrans to proceed. We had something similar to this a month or two ago.
So
Supervisor Jurdy?
I don't want to invite Caltrans to come in for a discussion where we're giving comments that are not going to make a difference. But I was wondering if maybe I could talk to you about this, but I would like to see them install some rumble strips just on the outside of the fog line, because that would, if someone was driving and sort of errantly went into the fog line, which is past the fog line, which is in the bike route and also where pedestrians are walking, because there's quite a few pedestrians in this route. It would, alert the driver. They'd get back into the travel lane.
Well, I know you're an avid bicyclist. The engineering manuals I read discourage us using rumble stripes on the bike lane because we've been told that the bicyclists hit the rumble stripes and it can even throw them off their bike. So as an engineer, I'm just letting you know the guidance we get is not to put these around. But you're a bicyclist, so maybe that isn't.
But I think that's more of an issue where you have a very narrow shoulder, and in this stretch, I think they've got about a 7 or 8 foot shoulder. So, and there's also different widths in the rumble strip. It doesn't have to be a foot wide. It could be 4 inches wide or 6 inches wide. So maybe we could talk about this.
Okay,
and maybe we could
offline,
see
sure.
if that's something that they could do to, because again, the main issue is I see an awful lot of pedestrians, kids walking up and down. I mean, that's just considered a street more than a highway for the neighbors out there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Howard. We will accept your report. And Christie, do you want to jump back in here? And Christie had given her presentation, and we were at the point of her taking any questions from the board regarding the RCRC item. Are there any questions by board members? Supervisor Brown?
Actually, I don't have a question, but I would like to make a recommendation that we appoint as our board representative to RCRC Supervisor John Pinches.
Okay.
I don't really like that recommendation.
Approve the county membership. Okay, so as far as the recommended motion, you did not want to, you don't want to deal with CHF. You want to bifurcate that and deal first with the recommendation of a delegate.
Actually, I'm asking the question, will Supervisor Pinches, I think it's a great fit for him, and
I think it's a great fit for you.
that he would represent our county well on the RCRC board and the CHF board.
Okay, Supervisor Pinches, are you demurring, or are you declining, or what are you doing here?
I don't want to pass the buck, but again, in a way I am. First of all, if I was appointed today, there's only how many years or months left in the year? 6 months, 7 months. And then I would be chairman next year, so I would defer that to somebody else. So it would really be probably better to put somebody that's going to be on there for long term. And as Christie pointed out, it's been kind of the history of it to have the CSAC rep and the RCRC be the same person. But if Supervisor Brown don't want to do that, then that's...
Well, why don't you nominate her and see?
Well, yeah, certainly.
Okay. So Supervisor Pinches has nominated Supervisor Brown to be our representative.
And I'd be willing to serve.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Supervisor Brown to represent the county on RCRC. Supervisor McGowan.
Well, and actually, the recommended action motion calls for appointment of a supervisor as the board's rep and an alternate.
Yeah.
So maybe we could just accomplish this whole thing if the motion is for the recommended action motion with Supervisor Brown to be the representative and Supervisor Pinches to be the alternate.
I can do that.
Well, I was just trying to get what we could get here, but if that's okay with the maker of the motion and the seconder of the motion. Okay, so the motion is that, go ahead, Supervisor Pinches.
Again, maybe it would be better to make the alternate somebody that was going to, maybe be here, planning on be here for the next 20 years or something. I mean, there is a lot of value in historical value when you get sit on any of these commissions or anything, and frankly, I don't know if I'm going to be here 20 years from now, or even 2 years from now. So I was
bet
thinking
you will be.
Maybe if Supervisor Jurdy was interested or something. I mean, I'll be willing to set as the alternative. But,
Some heavy-duty horse trading going on here.
I'm just...
Supervisor Jurdy.
I assume we're going to be in this organization for the long term now.
I think so.
We tried it, we pulled out of it, and that really didn't work, and so we're now... So let's kind of think about the membership and who's going to represent it for the long term.
I think Supervisor Pinches could be the alternate, and I'll be happy to continue talking to them, outside of their board meetings.
Okay. I'll serve as alternate.
Okay, we're back to our original plan, which is Supervisor Brown to represent us and Supervisor Pinches to be the alternate to RCRC. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. That carries unanimously. And now let's go to the CHF item.
Chair Hamburger, I was going to suggest a minor amendment to the resolution, to the action, which would be adoption of a resolution approving the board's membership in CHF, if that is the pleasure of the board. They need a resolution as the instrument affirming our membership.
Okay. How about by order of the chair? Consistent with the motion that we just passed? Okay. Now can we go to the other part of this?
Would the board like to become a regular member, a county member in CHF?
Right. Do you want to talk about CHF at all? I mean, it was all here in our packet, but
Yes,
does
the
anyone
California Rural
have questions
Home
about CHF
Finance.
and whether we would like to be a full member rather than what we are currently, which is an associate member?
I think it's important to maybe talk about it mainly for the public.
So in the resource materials, there is the existing JPA that outlines the terms of the member organizations, and CHF is the California Rural Home Mortgage Finance Authority, and we are currently an associate member, and if the county chooses to become a full member, we would have a voting right on the board of directors for that organization. And it assists our residents who are eligible for homeowner assistance through CHF, which is administered by the rural counties representatives of California, president and CEO.
And there's no cost to that, right?
And there's no cost to the county to become a full member, and there's additional information on RCRC's website, and I'd be happy to provide additional information to any member of the public who may be interested in knowing more about it.
Okay, any questions about the CHF membership aspect? The only thing that concerned me a little bit was on page 2, when I read about how they use debt instruments like mortgage-backed securities. Every time I see MBS, I get the heebie-jeebies. Because, of course, it was mortgage-backed securities that helped bring down the financial system in 2009. But I don't know if anybody else caught that or thought that was at all disturbing, but I assume they know what they're doing. Is that a good assumption?
I think so, and we could always invite them back if you'd like more information about the particulars.
I guess you're sort of in for a dime, in for a dollar with RCRC here, so.
I kind of like the fact that 95% of the revenue comes from this housing authority and only 5% of the revenue comes from the dues.
Comes from,
Right.
from dues,
Membership
yeah.
dues.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, I don't, do we need, Supervisor McCowan was questioning whether we needed a motion on
I think that's
this,
covered.
but you think it's covered?
Well, we would need a motion because the resolution would call for the maker and the seconder of the motion and the full board vote.
Okay.
Well,
You have to
when-
come
when
back
I-
with the resolution.
Go
When
ahead,
I
Supervisor.
made my comment
Yeah.
saying that we could add Supervisor Pinchas as an alternate, I referred to the recommended action motion called for those two appointments, and we could simply plug them both into that. So if it was the understanding of the maker of the motion that we were approving the recommended motion and the maker of the second.
Okay, let's ask the maker.
Well, don't you have to come back for a separate resolution anyway?
Not if the board allows us today to go through with that as a ministerial action.
Okay, that
Okay.
was the intent of the
So,
motion.
if that works for you, Mr. Clerk, can we just fold that in? In other words, with the resolution, and includes the CHF issue, and it includes the representative and the alternate. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much. And we are right on time for our 10 o'clock timed item. Doing better than we were a couple of weeks ago. But with regard to the bid, Scott Schneider's here. And this is our 10 o'clock timed item, which is a public hearing and adoption of resolution confirming fiscal year 13-14 annual report of the MC Mendocino County Lodging Business Improvement District, levying an annual assessment for the bid in fiscal year 13-14. And this is item 5G. And let's see, where's the clerk? Oh, he's coming. Okay, first we need to establish that proper notice has been given.
Proper notice has been established, yes.
Okay, and we will now open the public hearing. And I see Mr. Duncliffe is ready to lead off here, or?
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Steve Duncliffe, Director of Planning and Building Services. I'm just going to give a very quick overview of what we're doing here today for the benefit of the board and the public. The Mendocino County Lodging Business Improvement District, or BID, includes all lodging businesses within both the unincorporated and incorporated areas of the county. It was established in 2006 through the addition of Chapter 5.140 to the Mendocino County Code. And the purpose of the bid is promotion of the county with the goal of increased visitor spending. The bid enables collection of a 1% gross room rent assessment from these district businesses and also requires the county to provide a 50% match to the assessment funds raised. Your board appointed a bid advisory board to cause the creation of the annual report for the coming year. Today represents the second component of an annual two-part process to renew the bid. And because the March 26th event was cut a little bit short, we'll actually have the presentation that was originally intended for board consumption at that date will go to you today. On March 26th, the resolution of intention was adopted by the board, which accepted the annual report and set the date and time of today's public hearing. And finally, absent protest by lodging owners representing 51% of the bid assessment during the public hearing, you're going to be asked to confirm your acceptance of the annual report, which will thereby levy the bid assessment in the coming fiscal year. So that concludes my brief remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Dunnacliff. Any questions for Mr. Dunnacliff? Okay, thank you. Scott, are you going to lead off here? No?
I'll just lead off. My name is Callie Dim. I'm the president of the Mendocino County Lodging Association. And because last time we were here, you were so busy with the Willis bypass, we did skip the presentation. Scott did edit it quite a bit, but we did want to take a few minutes of your time today. There's so many new supervisors since the inception, and it was actually pretty fun for us to go back in time to see where we started and how far we have come, that we thought it would be a good exercise for everyone to share this with you. And turn it over to Scott.
Thank you. So Scott Schneider from Visit Mendocino County. Again, thanks for letting us take the time today rather than 2 weeks ago. Sorry we don't have the same crowd in here though, but we will manage. So real quick, we wanted to give you a quick history of the bid. I think this is the first year that none of the supervisors that initially passed the original bid 7 years ago are currently seated. And so we, again, like Callie said, we thought it would be good to kind of go back in time briefly, talk about where we are now, and then of course open up for your questions and then the public hearing. So before 2006, the Promotional Alliance received funding from the county out of the general fund, getting anything from $0 to about over $500,000. That organization came out from a joint study that was done in 1998. MCPA used most of its funds for festivals, public relations, advertising, fulfillment. There was no guarantee of funding every year. Every year, the supervisors would get quarterly reports that were binders this thick. I'm sure it's somewhere in boxes you guys have all of these quarterly reports. And MCLA's function at the time was solely a membership organization. We did have seats on the MCPA board, but really there was very, very small budget, and we did some educational stuff and occasional social events. And so after 2006, the bid, of course, guaranteed funding for promotion and guaranteed a match from the county of 0.5%. And we thought that would come out to about $900,000. The first year it was less than that, but about $900,000 a year if you combine both budgets. However, the first couple of years, both budgets were not combined. MCPA continued to do its activities, and MCLA had a contractor, myself, with limited coordination between the two groups. And this is just a quick snapshot of that first year. Major accomplishments is the Wine Commission also formed the same day as the bid. As you know, the Wine Commission no longer exists, but they both formed on July 1 of 2006. And we did form a joint marketing committee to focus on very specific things like fulfillment pieces, event coordination, and a trade show booth for the county. We also redesigned the website, and we came up with the infamous M brand at that time. The second year of the bid, again, the budget is about the same. And major accomplishments then, again, each organization was using its own funds separately. The Joint Marketing Committee, we created a joint marketing plan for the first time that really focused mainly on doing a countywide research study. MCLA did hold a board retreat at that time, trying to figure out how to streamline, how to make things run smoother, how to get a better bang for everybody's buck. And it was thought that MCLA should really become the gravity center of county promotions. And that's really when MCLA started to shift more strategic rather than, I don't want to say politic, but they started to look at, long term. down the road, where are we going to be in a few years? How can we best make use of all this? The third year is when we actually did the research plan. Again, you can look at the numbers in here for what budgets were, but the main thing was the research, formation of Visit Mendocino County. A couple big things that both organizations did based on the recommendations from that research was to become research-based, so that decisions were made based on research and not just opinion. And it was when we really decided that we needed to become strong partners of not only the county, but other businesses and organizations throughout the county. And of course, it was our first ever countywide full marketing plan and budget. And this just kind of summarizes that research project. It was funded by all three of the countywide organizations. We did an RFP. We did interviews, or the firm did interviews of board members, community members, government officials, visitors, potential visitors, community leaders, and we were given a list of recommendations that both organizations agreed to follow and implement over the coming years. And I found this as I was looking through the files, and I wanted to share and read it to you. This is from the firm that does these research programs all over the country. And it says, congratulations to MCLA, MCPA, and MWWC for coming together in an effective and meaningful way. You have prepared an outstanding 2009-10 research-based strategic marketing plan. Your organizations have translated the research Randall Travel Marketing conducted for you into an excellent and aggressive set of objectives, strategies, and tactics. How I wish every client of ours would do this. So that was an unsolicited letter that we received to them, because when we did the marketing plan, we wanted their opinion. Are we following the research? Are we doing what we should be doing? And this is the response that we got. So where are we now? Real brief, I like this slide because above the water is the tourism dollar that comes from the outside. A really great example right now is the film that's going on. A lot of businesses getting money for that film, a lot of inns, a lot of restaurants, stores, but those dollars are going to keep on being rotated throughout the community. Even the people that they hired to do, be production assistants and scouting, scouts and location scouts and all those things, and the ambulance and the fire and all of those dollars that are coming in are going to be circulated throughout the community. They say for every dollar that comes from the outside, it gets reused again 6 times inside the county. That person, we've all heard this. You go to a hotel. They pay Callie's, Callie pays her front desk clerk. She goes to Safeway, buys groceries, and so on and so on. So it's just kind of important to note that, tourism, and you all know this, is very important to our economy. $300 million in travel spending. This is as of 2010. 2011 numbers usually come out in April of May from Dean Runyon. Almost 5,000 jobs, over $100 million in earnings, and over $19 million in state and local taxes. And that was again for 2010. At the time that we did the research, they provided us with a way to measure our return on investment. At the time, it was 17-1. This past full year, I can go through this if you have questions, but right now it's 23.64 to 1. So we are moving in the right direction. And just to show you recently some of the awards we've won, we send emails out about these things. So if you're on our internal email list, you certainly receive these, but we think we're effective. The community in large thinks we're effective, and obviously outside the community thinks we're doing a pretty good job as well. And this is just one of our success charts. We've had the same PR firm now for 6 years. Mark, he's in the room. If you want to wave your hand, Mark, there he is. But as the message gets out there, again, more and more year after year, we get a better bang for our buck. Our investment in public relations has been stagnant during all these years, but our return gets higher and higher because the more we talk about ourselves to media, the more they get used to hearing about us, the more they think of us when they're thinking of articles and things that they want to do. And it's just that snowball effect that continues to, get larger. This is kind of hard to read, and I'll go through it in a minute, but one of the other interesting things that we looked at is if we combined the budgets pre-VMC and post-VMC, the levels of income and expense have been relatively the same. Our income has ranged from $930,000 all the way up to $1,073,000. And if you look at the different colors, the green is how much we spend in marketing, budgeted every year. The blue is administration, the red is personnel, and the yellowy gold is income. And one of the things that we wanted to note in that, one of the reasons that Visit Mendocino County was formed was to streamline, to again, get a better bang for our buck, to not duplicate things that we're doing. And in doing that, looking at, we have the same money if you combine the budgets that we've been working with. The percentages of where we put the money have been relatively the same, but we've been able to add a whole sales effort, a visitor services effort, funding chambers, putting up signage, even though it's a slow process, getting the signage up there, increased events and festivals. Before we just had Crab and Mushroom, now we have 2 other countywide festivals, and we have helped numerous other festivals grow and get established. And we decreased administration costs. During the first 3 years of the bid, we had an advertising agency based out of San Francisco where we spent anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 of that contract just through admin. And so we've taken over those administrative duties for the same cost. Of course, we've started social media efforts, which even 5 years ago weren't even what they are now, and leadership of the North Coast Tourism Council. And just this shows the industry average of where monies are spent. There's been a lot of questions about personnel and administration. So we just wanted to show you and show the public kind of where we are percentage-wise, and we're doing well. So the marketing industry average, 47% for marketing, we spend 65%. Personnel is 41% industry average, we spend 28%. And administration is 12% average, we spend 7%. And that's based on an international destination marketing organization as of 2011. It's hard, these are hard to read, so. And I wanted to point this out. You may have seen this recently or not. The Employers Council recently put out their annual study, business conditions survey, and when asked what can be done locally to support business activity and employment opportunities, the number 1 answer was to promote the county. And we see that, we take that very seriously. And it just shows again that, VM, this whole partnership is an integral part of the community, and we work with over 500 businesses and organizations, et cetera. And we just left this in here. We had a few slides going through the report, but we did that a couple weeks ago. But you did have the report in front of you. This is a quick organizational chart that's included in the report. It is kind of complicated. We've been discussing and debating for a couple of years now on ways to streamline it, and we'll continue to do so. But for now, it seems to be effective and to work. And with that, that's it. Take questions.
Thank you very much,
for
Scott.
your time.
You bet. Questions for Mr. Schneider? No? Supervisor McCowan?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I think you've been doing a fantastic job, and it's kind of amazes me that there's still, some undercurrent of opposition out there that would apparently like to eliminate the Business Improvement District. And I struggle to understand that because, for one thing, the bid does not cost any of the lodging owners. It simply is funded through a 1% assessment that is paid by the traveler. And even if you add that to our transient occupancy tax of 10%, you come up with a total of 11%, which I believe puts us pretty solidly at the low end, with very few exceptions probably in the state. So here's, and no one else is telling our story as a county. Some of the larger lodging owners have the ability to go out and do marketing on their own. Certainly the smaller ones, I don't believe, have a budget for that. So do you have an insight into what's the basis for this ongoing opposition? What's the best argument people can make against you? And that might seem an odd question to pose to you, but.
Not being in that camp, I can only venture a guess, and maybe some people will enlighten you with that today. I don't know. I think that the bid was created shortly before the recession hit, and the recession, of course, was hard on everybody, and I think to some degree, especially the smaller properties that got hit hardest are either expecting more out of the bid money and to work more for them, or are blaming VMC for not doing its job. I think the people's bottom line is the driving factor behind all of it, but there'll be a lot of other things put up. Again, that is just my guess. I, of course, am a full supporter of VMC.
Any follow-up, Supervisor?
Well, Scott has.
I was just going to. I don't know if the opposition out there, and again, of course, I'm not in that camp. I don't know if it's against the bid. I think it's against maybe how some of the bid funds are used. I think there's a lot of concern over administration and personnel costs. There's concern over transparency issues. And yeah, I think that people have different ideas on how the fund should be used. I mean, I've gotten opinions that we should only do 2-page spreads in Sunset Magazine with pictures. And then I've heard we should only do PR and we should, not do this and do this. And so I think generally, and again, we'll find out today, but I think generally the support for the bid itself is very strong. It's just how it's administered some people have concerns with.
Thank you. And as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, you're very actively moving to address those questions about the administrative, the internal administration of how things work and how things get communicated. So I think that'll only make you a stronger organization. And we did have submitted to us a listing of the average transient occupancy tax prior to the bid and after the bid. And of course, that provides an easy way to generally calculate the cost of the assessment because it's tied to the TOT. And the point that is being made is there's actually been a decline in the average bid funds received, or the average TOT funds received post-bid. But the bid took effect immediately prior to the economic collapse. So, it's no real surprise that there was an initial decline. And my question is, where would we be if we didn't have your organization promoting Mendocino County? So, I'll get off my little soapbox here, but I really appreciate the work that you're doing, not only to promote Mendocino County, but to continue doing the outreach within the county to explain to people what it is you're doing and why, and to make improvements where that's warranted. Thank you.
Supervisor Pinches.
What's been ongoing for years now? What's the latest on the collection of campground, TOT for campgrounds and trailer parks?
It has been submitted in the annual report for this year that the Lodging Association highly encourages the supervisors to relook at that issue again. So I think maybe you can take that on. But
that about sums it up. Really, I think they benefit and should probably pony up with the rest of us. I think they would see.
Supervisor McCowan, I guess you apparently have been involved in some meetings on this issue. Was this something you was going to agendize or forget about, or what was your input from the meetings?
Thank you, Supervisor Pinches. Well, I think that it's an issue that the board should revisit. So, we need to check our timelines. It would have to be approved by the vote of the public, is my understanding. But I do think it's something of an equity issue that campgrounds should probably pay the same TOT as the other lodging facilities. And I do believe they all benefit by the efforts of your organization. But I think that's a discussion the board should have. So I absolutely support bringing that back.
If I may,
and also, I think it's important that we have the representatives of the lodging industry saying that they do support that, because I don't think I would bother going forward if they didn't.
Yeah, basically, for the benefit of the listening audience, when we talk about trailer parks, that would be just overnight rentals, not
RV.
Okay. It would not be an actual trailer park. It'd be for less than 30-day occupancy.
Right. Right, like RVs coming in for the night or two. Okay, so that's.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that is actually not on our agenda today, so.
No, but what is?
But we could bring it back for sure as an agenda item if you want to look into it. Any other comments or questions? Okay, is there anyone in the public who would like to comment? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward and state your name.
Yes, my name is Pauline Zamboni. I'm the owner of the Inn at Victorian Gardens. I'm also the vice president of the Mendocino Lodging Association, and I'm heading up the group that's looking at the issues. And I just wanted to reinforce that of the 19 members on our MCLA board, I would say safely all but maybe one or two are firmly committed to looking at every issue, past, present, future. We have a 7 board member group which shares opposing views. We've been working now since last fall on a regular basis monthly, identifying all of the issues. We've requested that from the entire board and anyone else who wanted to contribute to that, reviewing those issues, making recommendations for change. We really do see that our goal and our commitment sometime this year is to complete that process and to be able to have a stronger, more efficient and effective both VMC and MCLA's oversight of our Visit Mendocino County organization. And we hope we can do that with bringing in the majority of not only our board members, but the membership at large. We represent 465 lodging businesses. So we're hoping to be able to accomplish that as much as possible. We know in a county of this size and this diversity, it can't be everyone, but we'd like to pull in as many people to share and to come up with changes that they can approve of and support, and we can move forward in the future with this and representing promotion for our county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public who'd like to address the board? Yes, Mr. Wagonette.
Thank you, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
morning, Hal.
Supervisors. I sat in your position as the funding for this went from $300,000 to $150,000 to $75,000 to zero in my last year. At the same time, the bid was being proposed and pushed forward by Supervisors Campbell and Shoemaker, and it did come into existence during that final year of my term. And I was quite pleased to see that happen. Lest you think that just because we have had the same PR firm for 6 years, that this is a stagnant organization, I would like to let you know that it is aggressive and always ready to look for new opportunities. We are going to revisit that relationship this year in the form of an RFP, I believe. And we don't just rest on our laurels. We go ahead. As you can see, we operate rather lean and mean compared to other comparable entities in this business. And I would have to say on the detractor side of it, if you have 465 entities, there are going to be some disagreements. And I think we learn more from our detractors than we do from our supporters. That's where you really find it out. Suppose your spouse or significant other always agreed with you. How fun would that be? So I just want to say that we listen to people who are our critics. We listen to them probably more and give them more attention, as you probably experienced yourselves. You listen very carefully to the critics of various things because you know where your supporters lie. And I don't see any of that as being negative for the effects of this thing. Additionally, though, the partnership that we have with the county and the partnership that we have with our other organizations, the wine, the arts, the chambers, and so on, is really the stuff of life of this county. As Supervisor McCowan correctly says, who else is telling our story? Well, that really is the answer. The main attractions, such as the skunk train, yeah, they can support themselves, but they understand that the rising tide floats all boats, just as it was mentioned that the sinking economy was showing some sinking of boats all at the same time due to that unfortunate coincidence. But all in all, I think it's an onward and upward organization, and it really is doing the best it can do with what it has compared to Lake County and Sonoma and some other outfits that have larger budgets. In fact, as you drive your own roads, you see little kiosks, informational places, and an ever-present web onslaught when you get on your computer with these folks telling that good story. So thank you for your time.
Hal, before you sit down, you were mentioning the relationship among the various entities that we're talking about this morning. You've got the Bid Advisory Board, and you got the MCPA and MCLA and the chambers. And another part of that is the Mendocino Film Office. And there's been a lot of attention focused on the film office, obviously with Need for Speed being made here in the county. Could you just talk a little bit about how the Mendocino Film Office fits into the overall rubric here of organizations that are trying to bring more activity into the county?
Mr. Chairman, I'll speak to the Film Office and to the Mendocino Film Festival, both in this my response. The Film Office itself is operated out of by the director or the executive director of the Fort Bragg Chamber of Commerce. Essentially is a one-person film office. It requires special training to be a representative of for the film industry. What it takes to bring somebody in and what the film industry needs is not a 5-minute process. We have actually looked at the possibility of bringing that office in-house and having Visit Mendocino do it, but the training aspects for that are a bit daunting. We would essentially have to hire a person and educate them and set them out to do that for occasional returns. Right now you've got the Need for Speed, and it's front and center in everybody's minds as you travel the areas, and the road closures are not insignificant as they go about their business. But the effort that the fact that it comes rather sporadically means you might have 2 or 3 years where nothing is happening and you'd have a paid staff person there. So we think that the film office itself is doing its job. We support them as best we can and encourage them as best we can. But that is a specialized role, and you would actually need a focused presentation to really understand how complex that is. I think that you might take my words as being, though, something that it's better left. It's not broken, so we're not probably going to try to fix it. Regarding the Mendocino Film Festival, they came to us a couple of years ago to visit Mendocino County and essentially asked us, would we like to take over that organization? But it was couched in such a way that we could not figure out how we could do that, and it didn't really meet our mission. So instead of saying, we'll take that over and you can just be happy that your child will now be under our custodial care, we said, why don't you expand it to be a county-wide film festival instead of a Mendocino-centric film festival? They took our words seriously. Last year they expanded into Fort Bragg and into Point Arena. This year they have added, in addition to those venues, and the Anderson Valley event, and just these last 3 days, they told me they just don't have the horsepower to put together the thing that they wanted to do in Willits. I stepped in on behalf of them and the local folks, and there will be on May 30th a major event in Willits at the Noyo Theater as a result of those efforts. So this is the kind of partnership that really makes it all work, is when they've got somebody that they can go to and somebody who is connected, as you all are, that can actually get something done for the benefit of the county. I mean, they don't pay me, it's just something that I happen to be able to connect for them. So does that answer your questions?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you talked about the film festival and its growth in the county. I think along with the general support in the county for the filming that's going on, despite the inconveniences, which are very real. But I do think that with respect to the inconveniences that CHP and the county sheriff's office and Caltrans have really tried to you know, it's not always great, but they do make sure that emergency vehicles get through and that accommodations are made where they need to be made. But, you know, there are also some complaints, well, you know, why are we bending over backwards for DreamWorks, and what did DreamWorks ever do for us, and do we really even like these kinds of movies? And I think the antidote to that, or the, you know, the way we can deal with those objections is to build our own Mendocino Film Festival, which does generate dollars to the county and does celebrate a lot of the kind of films that I think we feel better about maybe than we do about the big DreamWorks extravaganzas that are, you know, certainly, you know, I'll never go see Need for Speed, and it doesn't really interest me. Where the film festival, you know, there's lots of things there that I want to be, you know, I want to see, and I want to encourage others to see. So
Well,
I'm really
Supervisor,
glad that's happening.
Your personal taste in movies and mine are probably similar, and I will probably never see Need for Speed myself. But I did a little research, and the games that they have sold on these things
I
are
know.
astronomically
I know. I
higher
don't
than
play
any
video
hundreds
games
of
either.
millions of these doggone games. And the games and the movies all kind of feed together in the fashion statements.
Oh, yeah.
So, I have peripherally had a brief interlude with some of the innkeepers who are housing the talent and the staff and some of the restaurateurs, and they said, man, what a shot in the arm in the off season. I mean, they're pretty happy about that part. So, you know, we may not have a need for speed here, but we certainly have a need for dollars.
Okay, thank you, Hal. Any other comments from, yes, ma'am, please.
My name is Cynthia Ariosta. I'm the owner of Saucy, a new pizzeria downtown, and previously was the owner of 2 restaurants in Fort Bragg. And I'm not on the board. And I have, until very recently, no symbiotic relationship in terms of being a member of anything VMC does, except that I'm a business owner. And I just want to say that I think that some of the resistance to the organization actually comes from people not utilizing the tools that VMC gives them well. As a business owner, I use the VMC website. I try to post on their social media. I try to use their event calendar. I try to participate in events that they are what's the word for it? You're coordinating. And I think that a lot of businesses don't take those opportunities, and they're opportunities that as a small business owner, I wouldn't have to get my name out without a larger organization like VMC. You know, my social media, my Facebook page has 1,000 people following it. Theirs has many, many more than that. And when I post on their page, I'm hoping that even one person from their page comes and sees mine and likes my business. But I don't have those outlets myself. I just don't have that much room for marketing in my budget. I am my marketing budget. And so I think that it's really important that we have a direct marketing organization. I've seen some press for my new business that's a direct result of their efforts, twice in the Press Democrat that I know has come through Hype House. Certainly not sure that I could have gotten us into the Press Democrat on my own, at least this early in the game. And I was also on the Fort Bragg Promotion Committee for 5 years, and to speak about a volunteer organization as opposed to someone who's administratively salaried. I think it's very, very hard to get volunteers to do the kind of work that VMC does. You can only do so much as a volunteer if you're not getting paid for it. You certainly have a lot more that you can contribute when you are getting paid for your time. So I think it's really important that VMC continues on behalf of the entire county and for particularly small businesses, even not lodging businesses, but for the other businesses that are directly affected by people staying in the hotels.
Thank you. It also helps that you make great pizza. And
thank you.
Tim, did you get the gentlelady's name? You did. Okay, very good. Anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, John Curry.
John Curry, Economic Development and Financing Corporation. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm also a member of Visit Mendocino. I want to point out that EDFC conducted an economic development summit, and we identified targets of opportunity. Whereas tourism wasn't an exact target, it was a very important part of our economy. And although Mendocino has a competitive advantage in the terms that our scenery and our quality of life here are desirable by tourists, it is a very competitive market now. And more counties are spending more on how to market their areas. And I think VMC has done a great job with the limited budget that it has. So I think that not only is the reasons why people come here to visit, but that they're also the same reasons why they come and open a business here. So I think getting the word out of the benefits of living and owning a business in Mendocino are something that are ancillary benefits of VMC as well.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Anyone else care to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Chairman and members of the board, I'm Deborah Watson. My husband Mark and I built as general contractor and continue to own and operate the Hampton Inn, the Comfort Inn and Suites, and the restaurant which is now reborn as Crush in Ukiah. We also have 2 hotels in Humboldt County. My husband Mark was very, very involved with the marketing of those hotels. He served as president of the board of the Humboldt County Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Chamber, and we go to a lot of different hotel for the different brands marketing meetings, and so we kind of live that. I would like to say first of all that John mentioned that there's this big resistance, and I'm sure there are a lot of people. A lot of hoteliers, bed and breakfast owners who are very much against this bid. I have heard that. I'd like to say that I'm absolutely not against a bid. I totally agree with so many of the comments here. Again, the comment, who else is going to market this county? Very, very important. I completely agree with the the whole concept of if one of us does well in business, we all do well. The $1 from spent on hotel lodging does translate into $6 floating around the community. I totally agree with that. I would be very sad personally to see the bid go away. However, and I know some of my comments are going to make me very unpopular, but I have. Having some experience with how Humboldt County does things, we now have an organic farm in Lake County, have a little experience there, and worked kind of closely with the Sonoma Convention and Visitors Bureau when the became a ballot issue for the city of Ukiah to up our TOT and how to use that for marketing. So totally, I have no axe to grind here. I'm just jumping into this. I found out about this meeting end of last week, and I really don't know anybody else who's against it. I guess I would say I'm part of that 52.5% of people who basically gave the bid a no vote of confidence. 52.5% of the assessment owners who voted to not increase it. I served on the board of MCPA for several years, and this was prior to the bid. And I knew Richard Strom, and I knew Scott. Just before I left, this whole thing was kind of, getting formed. They were working very, very hard to get this in place. I think what really troubles me is that we've got the administrator, I guess, Scott, and I think Scott and Richard are very nice people. I don't mean to. I think this could be done better and more professionally in this county. If you look at, I certainly don't blame the bid for those terrible years of 08 and 09. And if you look at the big drop in TOT, certainly not. That's an industry-wide thing. I do think there's a lot of areas in California who did not have as big a drop, but I think that they certainly can't be held accountable for that. However, since those dark, dark years of 08 and 09 in our industry, I mean, we've got 4 hotels, 250 rooms. We're up 20%. We're back above what we were before this 08-09 recession hit. And I look at the TOT figures, I have to disagree that the bid has been effective. as run and administrated.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up. I've been trying to ignore that flashing light, but
closing that again, I do disagree. We're back TOT at or below what we were before this recession hit. I think my big problem is that I see we've got a person making a lot of secrecy, so nobody on the board seems to know, but over $90,000 a year, who was a front desk staff person in a hotel. I don't know that he ever has run $1 million budget. I do not believe he has a track record of ever successfully marketing, a city, county, whatever. I believe Richard Strom, again, a lot of secrecy. He had a little bed and breakfast that went out of business. He is making, who knows? I don't know. I'm hearing $60,000. I think we need a strong central tourist agency in this county. I encourage you to look towards Sonoma County in particular, Humboldt County, see how they have structured things to put together a bid and a marketing that will actually work. Which
okay.
I've
Thank you.
vested interest in seeing.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate your comments. Okay. Okay, I'm sure that someone would like to respond to some of those comments. Callie?
Well, we are certainly the first to admit that we have a kind of a wonky organizational structure, just the bid money coming into the Lodging Association, the matching funds coming into MCPA. We kind of like to say that those were the parents that had a baby called VMC. So just the nature of that structure does make things look opaque from the outside often. All our meetings are open, our budgets are open. I mean, I don't know how much more transparent we could possibly be. That said, one of the things that we are looking at in our group of 7 that Pauline talked about is big picture down the road. What could we do to maybe streamline this kind of weird structure that we have? I think that almost everybody agrees that VMC would be the center of it, and just how we fund it, how we oversee it, et cetera, is the big part of the discussion. And looking towards counties that do it from a more professional, less Mendo way of doing things, definitely Humboldt and Sonoma and others would be good representatives of that.
Mm-hmm. And if I may really quick, Deborah, I want to thank you for coming and speaking, really, because you hear things out in the woods about all these things that people are saying, and I never get a chance to hear them firsthand. So really, thank you. And with regards to your experience in Humboldt and Sonoma, first of all, I agree with you on the structure, because I would love to have the same structure that they have. Humboldt with the bid is getting a little complicated up there, but your husband was president of the Bureau. I encourage him to talk to Tony Smithers and ask him to have Tony tell you how he thinks we're doing.
Scott, and through the chair, please.
Oh, sorry. And thank you. And, also check with Sonoma County and get their opinions about, what they feel is going on up here. And I think it's important to compare Mendocino to other surrounding counties. And I think that if you have those conversations, those that have doubts may be pleasantly surprised. Okay.
Any other comments? Did I see a hand back there? No. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Alyssa.
Thank you. Alyssa Weir, Arts Council of Mendocino County. We're a partner of Visit Mendocino County, and I just wanted to echo Supervisor McCowan in the power of story. Sometimes it takes a global strategy to enhance a localizing mission, and I see that Visit Mendocino County does this very effectively, and that in the past couple of years, they've been encouraging other organizations to think of themselves as county-wide organizations and to help tell that story even more effectively. Mendocino Music Festival, the Film Festival, even the Mendocino Coast Botanical Gardens recently has begun to think of itself as a county-wide organization. And the model of the festivals, the Crab and Wine and Mushroom Festival model, has inspired the Mendocino County Celebrates American Craft Week Festival, which in its first year we had more events occurring in Mendocino County than other participating states had for this countrywide festival. So that in turn gives us even more stories to tell about Mendocino County, and I think they are really about the truth of Mendocino County, who we are, and that encourages, it builds tourism, it helps that small businesses, small art businesses, and ends up bringing more people to the county to support our local economy. So thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa. Anyone else? Okay, questions or comments by the board? Okay. The only thing that I want to say is we've spent 45 minutes this morning, and I'm really glad that we did, and I'm glad there are quite a few people in the audience. We sometimes forget that this is by far our largest industry. $300 million in economic activity, almost 5,000 jobs associated with tourism. And I just think it's very important that we highlight that to the people of the county, because, you do hear the negative things about, whether it's Need for Speed or whether it's, people not liking tourists, but clearly they are the goose that lays the golden egg in Mendocino County. So we do want to encourage as part of our economy. And I'm glad we had some criticism. I was going to comment about how there was no criticism, and there's something wrong when there's no criticism, particularly in Mendocino County. But I do know that as a 5th District Supervisor, I hear less criticism than I did when I first came on the board. I think there has been a real attempt at transparency and at reaching out to the folks who are not on board. I know this issue of increasing the bid assessment is very controversial, and I think the smart thing was done in kind of retrenching and taking another run at it later when you see if there is more consensus. But all in all, I think our tourism promotion is doing pretty well, especially given the overall state of the economy. So, any other comments by board members? Sorry, Supervisor McCowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, comments were made regarding transparency, but if I wanted to know how every dollar is spent in terms of personnel and what salaries and benefits are, is all that information accessible?
We have a salary line item in our budget that talks about how much as a team we make per year. Sorry, thank you. We have a line item in the budget for salaries that talks about how much is made by employees throughout the year. The board has felt that it's not, publicly put out on a website or something how much each person makes. Is not really. They didn't feel was appropriate, but if asked, the information's there.
Well, as to the total, but not as to an individual, because, we operate in a different environment, and so every public employee, you can ask what is their salary, and you can receive that information as to salary and benefits. So every county, city, state employee. And in a way, since these are kind of public dollars that are, it's at least collected by and funneled through the government, you might consider revisiting that policy, because that seems to be one of the criticisms. So just another thing to consider. And I do agree, and Scott, or Callie Dim, actually, I think you made the comment that to the effect the interplay between the Mendocino County Lodging Association, the Mendocino County Promotional Alliance, and Visit Mendocino is not necessarily well understood, and that's certainly true for me. And I've been kind of following it for years, and actually Supervisor Jurdy and I, although we were not on the Board of Supervisors, we were on our respective city councils when the bid was first approved. But so that adds an element of complexity that, probably accounts for some of the concern about the organization. But I do really think, you're moving forward in trying to address those concerns, and I do also appreciate Deborah Watson for coming forward and laying some of the concerns right out on the table. It's pretty hard to deal with the things that you don't know people are saying. If they're not coming forward with the criticism, it's pretty hard to deal with things you don't really know about. And other than that, I would be ready to go forward, but I see Supervisor Brown has a comment.
Supervisor?
I do, and thank you. As a lifelong resident in Mendocino County, I've seen efforts like this start up, going forward, gather steam, and then blow up. And there have been a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to go into all of them. But myself and Farm Advisor Glenn McGordy started down the path of promoting Mendocino County, but we started with the fact that we needed to promote Mendocino County to Mendocino County, and that gave birth to Mendocino Bounty. And because of that effort, it rolled into the Promotional Alliance, and now we are where we are. And I'm very proud. I appreciate receiving all the information that I do receive, and appreciate all the work of the volunteers, as well as criticism, because if no one tells you what they think you're doing wrong, how do you know which path to take and get that map and in order to go forward. But I really do appreciate it, all the work that's done by the Lodging Association as well. So that's my comment, and I will add to campgrounds and RV places of business where people can stop. In 2009, coming on the board, we really looked at that. And myself and former Supervisor Kendall Smith, we were on a standing committee, and we had a series of meetings and did not go forward with an initiative to add campgrounds and RV parks. And there were a lot of reasons for that. So if we're going to go down that path again, it's going to bring in a whole lot of people that have very strong opinions, and so I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yes, Callie?
May I address the transparency in salaries just very quickly?
Sure.
It is a topic that the Group of Seven has tackled. It has not been approved by the MCLA board yet, but our recommendation to that board is going to be, along with published job descriptions, to also publish the wage ranges for each job. So not what a particular individual makes, but what the wage range would be for that position.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Any final comments from the public? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion on the resolution. Supervisor McCowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move adoption of the resolution before us.
Okay, is there a second? We have a motion, Supervisor McCowan, a second by Supervisor Brown. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously, and thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll
short break.
Take a short break and come back for our 11 o'clock timed item. Let's take 10 minutes. Come back at 5 after 11.
No more blasphemy. No more.
The item before us is timed on our agenda. It's item 5D, discussion and possible action related to the formation of an ad hoc committee on the Brook Trails CSD and Brook Trails subdivision. And the staff for this item is the Executive Office, and I see Mr. Knopp is ready to talk with us. Go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Hamburg, members of the board. My name is Kyle Knopp, and I'm with the Executive Office. The genesis of this item really started about a year ago when the board directed on March 26th of 2012 to hold a public hearing on the Teeter program and its relationship with the Brook Trails Township Community Services District. At the time, there was a high degree of concern regarding the effects on the teeter debt resulting from several defaulted parcels in the Brook Trails area that were not being purchased at public auction and appear to be unmarketable. On June 11th of 2012, the board opted to discontinue the direct assessments for the Brook Trails Township Community Services District. This was seen as the most cost-effective manner to mitigate the issue at that point in time. The board further directed that a process be looked at to discontinue the ad valorem taxes for the township. And so on March 26th of 2013, just a couple weeks ago, the board received an update on the discontinuation of the ad valorem taxes for the Brook Trails Township. The board ultimately directed staff to return to the board with an item recommending the formation of an ad hoc committee that would broaden its scope into factors that surround and impact the Teeter Plan and Brook Trails and the Brook Trails subdivision in general. And that is what we are here to act upon today, is the formation of an ad hoc committee. An ad hoc committee is generally formed to work on a specific project or subject area. One of the items left undefined at the prior board meeting was the exact scope of such an ad hoc. In other words, what would the ad hoc cover? Several topics came up, including the discontinuation of the ad valorem property tax, teeter debt elimination, parcel consolidation, teeter's elimination, the teeter program's elimination and its impact on the housing element, and the Brook Trails second access. Another issue that staff recommends be clarified would be a timeline for the ad hoc to report back to the board on its progress. Finally, an issue that needs to be defined is the composition of the ad hoc, the staff involvement and voting structure, most importantly, which two board members would sit on the proposed ad hoc. This is the issue that would need to be decided today in order to move forward. The recommendation from staff today is that the full board appoint two of your members to the ad hoc and allow those two members to define the scope, timeline, and composition of the ad hoc. The ad hoc, if your board follows staff recommendation, would then be directed to complete this initial step in the process by the next board meeting, which is on April 23rd, at which time the item would return to the full board for your consent. At that point in time, the ad hoc could then move forward with a clearly defined scope, timeline, and process in order to achieve the forthcoming objectives. And with that, I'd...
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Questions of board members. Supervisor Pinches.
I got a question to County Council. Is it within the parameters of an ad hoc? I thought an ad hoc was to do a special purpose. So is it within the parameters of the ad hoc to form an ad hoc and then let them set their own parameters of what it says here? Because it says the recommended action is to define its own scope. Shouldn't that be defined by us before we form the ad hoc?
Well, the Brown Act doesn't speak with precise clarity to the question you've posed, Supervisor. The board has the power, obviously, to form an ad hoc and to define for that ad hoc committee its membership and what its tasks
Yeah, but
tasks
what
are.
we're proposed, or what's proposed here, is for the ad hoc to define what its scope is, not the board. So shouldn't this board, if we form an ad hoc today, shouldn't we define the scope then?
Mr. Chair.
If I could step in.
Hold on a second.
Well,
Wait,
clarification.
just a second.
Not the recommendation.
Just a second.
What it says in the recommendation.
Wait, just a second, both of you. Are you finished?
I'm glad to, no, I'm not totally finished, but I'm glad to let the others,
Okay.
subject to the
You're willing?
chairs.
Okay, Supervisor McCowan, you
Well,
had a comment?
the recommendation, which I don't necessarily agree with, is for the ad hoc to define its scope and return to the board on April 23rd for approval of that scope.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Knopp.
Chair Hamburg,
Supervisor McCowan basically stated what I was going
Okay.
to say. This
Very
is
good.
essentially an ad hoc to define the scope of the actual ad hoc that moves forward in the process.
Okay, I'm sorry, Supervisor Brown.
Thank you. Sorry I spoke out, but
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I had my yellow pen out.
I'm
before both
sorry.
the boys.
Sometimes I get it wrong.
Well, I'm fully in support of this, and I'm going to go forward with a motion to form an ad hoc committee composed of 2 members of the board, Supervisors John Pinches and Supervisor John McCowan, as directing said ad hoc to define its own scope, composition, timeline related to the Brook Trails Township Community Service District and Brook Trails subdivision, and returning to the board with a report and recommendation on how to proceed by April 23rd, 2013.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Supervisor Pinches.
Before we vote on this, Mr. Chairman, we have members from Brook Trails here, the general manager. and
Well,
the fire
okay,
chief.
we will definitely recognize them. Supervisor McCowan.
Well, and also, I don't necessarily disagree with the motion, but I'd like to clarify that in this interim period, while the ad hoc is developing its scope, that nothing in that motion limits our ability to meet with county staff to clarify certain questions that I think will help us in defining the scope.
Absolutely, I think that is
You
what the
concur with
motion's
that?
about.
Okay. I would now like to ask members of the public who'd like to speak to come forward. Yes, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Chief Darrell Shepner. I'm the fire chief for the Brook Trails Fire Department, and I'd like to read a short statement, then answer any questions you might have. The Brook Trails Fire Department and the citizens of Brook Trails will suffer greatly with the loss of funding under the proposed elimination of the Teeter Plan. The Brook Trails subdivision is the highest fire severity zone in Mendocino County, as described by the California Board of Forestry and CAL FIRE. In July of last year, the fire department lost its hazard abatement coordinator's position due to the lack of funding, putting at risk the fire department's comprehensive fire abatement program. Currently, the Brook Trails Township funds a subsidy to the fire department with approximately $60,000 a year from its general fund. The loss of these funds would not only put the citizens at risk, but would jeopardize the ability of the fire department just to function. As past president of the Mendocino County Fire Chiefs Association, I can tell you that local government fire departments in this county and across this country struggle daily with funding issues. With the passage of CAL FIRE's fee, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for local government departments to have the ability to go out for tax rate adjustments. As you may or may not know, the Brook Trails Fire Department attempted a tax rate adjustment last year, but was unsuccessful, losing by a mere 32 votes. In my 38 years as a professional firefighter, I can tell you that your decision to cut funding under the Teeter Plan will in turn cut funding to the Brook Trails Fire Department could have a catastrophic effect to public safety. I would ask all of you to consider carefully your decision to eliminate the Teeter program and to consider its effects on the Brook Trails Fire Department, the communities of Brook Trails, Spring Creek, and Sylvandale, and its public safety. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. I assume you'll be here and board members can address questions to you as we go along.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there other members of the audience who'd like to speak?
Rose, I'm the new general manager, so the new kid on the block for Brook Trails.
Excuse me, Tim, did you get that name? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Go ahead.
The board and myself, and as well as all staff members are deeply concerned about the possible loss of Teeter funds, because current loss has already devastated our budget. Further loss would devastate it more, particularly, as the chief said, with our fire department, which receives the bulk of those funds at this time. On the other hand, I think that the board and staff are interested in working with the supervisors and the staff of the county on other issues that affect Brook Trails, specifically the lot merger program as it currently exists, the update of the specific plan, and the second access road, and how we can all move forward together on those issues, which will ultimately improve the collection rate for the county and for Brook Trails overall, and will ultimately help the housing element for Mendocino County. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shopmeyer or Ms. Ford, do you care to weigh in at this point? Okay, you're just here to answer questions. Okay. Okay, back to the board. Questions to the board. I think Supervisor Dirty, and then Supervisor Pinches, and then Supervisor McCowan.
So I guess this is a question for the Brook Trails Fire Chief. Are you saying that Brook Trails has its own separate fire department, separate from the Willits Little Lake Valley Fire Department?
Yes, and we have for a great number of years.
So I was a member of the Fort Bragg Fire Department board, and in Fort Bragg's case, the city of Fort Bragg and the surrounding area have a joint powers authority that operates a fire department, and I found that to be very efficient in having one fire department to serve the entire area. So, you know, I'm surprised that you have two different fire departments to serve an area that's no larger than the Fort Bragg metro area.
Yeah, my understanding of it is, in my 17 years now with Brook Trails, that's been a discussion in the past several times. But the process to join those two agencies is not really feasible for both departments. And again, we don't, you know, we are a separate fire district than the Little Lake Fire District, which just happens to be within the city of Willits, but they are a fire district on their own.
And I just find it hard to believe that it's not more efficient to combine the two.
Supervisor Pinches.
Well, if this motion passed, and I tend to support this motion because I think this kind of, we get the scope of all the issues, and hopefully our treasurer and our auditor will be at these meetings, at this ad hoc meeting, and maybe not the first meeting, but certainly from the second meeting forward on this ad hoc committee, I would certainly want the participation of Brook Trails, because Brook Trails is a community service district that has its own elected officers. So I think it's very important, and a lot of these decisions are Brook Trails decisions. They're really not County of Mendocino's decisions. So, you know, the Teeter plan is County of Mendocino's decision. When you start talking about other issues, and I assume that's what we're going to talk about, it's going to take the participation of Brook Trails and the cooperation of Brook Trails to do anything. For instance, like the lot merger plan or whatnot. I mean, those issues. So if we want to have the whole scope of things, I want to certainly have the elected officials at Brook Trails participate, plus the staff up there.
Supervisor McCowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And obviously today we're only voting on forming an ad hoc. We're not voting on taking any further action to de-teeter the Brook Trails Community Services District. But the fact that we would have such a strong plea that the teeter program is, that de-teetering Brook Trails would be devastating to the fire department is proof that there's a problem, because I don't think your department should be relying on a subsidy from the county that, you know, and in effect that seems to be what's going on. Certainly there's a county subsidy to the Brook Trails District when tax defaulted properties don't sell at auction. And and I certainly agree with Supervisor Pinches that this ad hoc, if the motion passes, should work closely with the Brook Trails board, and and I would think it will be up to this board to decide but we certainly should have some meetings that are open and noticed to the public, and those could either be through a joint meeting with the Brook Trails Board, or through the Brook Trails Board may wish to appoint an ad hoc to meet with our ad hoc, and we could publicly notice those. I think we're open to whatever suggestions the Brook Trail Board will have on, the most appropriate way to work with Brook Trails. But that'll, I think, be a big part of this ad hoc. But basically, we need to get as much factual information as we can, and I think there's some things, I know there are some things that I don't understand about the complexities of the teeter program and de-teetering and what can and can't be done. So that's a big part of this, is to get that accurate information in the most efficient way for the board, so that the board can then be in a position to make the best decisions going forward.
Okay, Supervisor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Hamburg. Chief, I think you've probably heard that the Board of Forestry, CAL FIRE, they have suspended any further, what would you say, billing of the $150 fee until it's decided in court. So I just wanted to mention that to you.
My understanding was that they had stopped the billing for clerical issues, more specifically the proper identifying of the properties and those owners, and that once that was done, that the process would continue.
Well,
So-
it's in court, but
Well,
it
I'm-
is suspended because of the 87,000 letters that came, but I understood it totally differently, and that came from a legislative newsletter.
As you know, the County Fire Chiefs Association, when I was president during that time of this being an issue brought up, we were all against this idea, so I'm glad to hear that hopefully this does not continue.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Supervisor Pinches.
Yeah, but just because they suspend the billing doesn't mean when you get the bill next year, it'll be double the fee. They may suspend sending out the bill, but when you get the bill, it'll still be for that period
Well,
of
let's
2
hope
years.
it wins in court.
So, just another comment for Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, before we continue. I don't know how this ad hoc is going to work, because I've stated that I oppose the de-teetering, total de-teetering of Brook Trails, and Mr. McCowan has said he supports it. So we have a long ways to go to come up with a ad hoc
Well, I
resolution.
think that was my urging, that the
So-
two of you be appointed.
So if we come back with a split decision, it's still going to come back to this board to make a decision. So.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor, Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we have, it was seconded, everything's cool. One more time, I want to ask if Ms. Ford or Ms. Shapmeyer want to comment about this action by the board. Nope, you're fine? Everything's good? Okay. So I take that to mean that you will participate in meetings of the ad hoc committee. You're not going to boycott the meetings or anything like that? Okay, very good. You promise, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, all in favor of the motion? I'm sorry, Carmel?
I'm sorry, I was trying to determine, was there a motion to form the ad hoc, and then did you pick the two
We did.
supervisors? I missed it. Okay,
We did.
thank you.
We did.
Where were you?
Yep. It's going to be Jurdy and Brown, just like you thought.
She's been here long enough, she's learned to tune us out, so.
She actually gets work done while we're doing all this. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for coming in. And we'll hear more at the next meeting about teeter and de-teeter. To teeter or not to teeter.
What's do we have a date set for the first ad hoc?
No.
you and me.
That'll be an ad hoc decision.
Don't say anything around the other three of us, or you're
Right.
in trouble.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, where do you want to go next?
Sorry, at this time, we can go to the CEO's report if she's prepared.
Okay, Ms. Angelo?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, the board has hard copies of my CEO report. There are hard copies available in the executive office, and it is online. Very briefly today, we continue with our state of emergency with the Health and Human Services Agency Dora Street facility. However, we do have a target date for the first relocation phase, which is April 15th. General Services has done phenomenal and quick work in trying to get that facility ready for staff to move back in, and restoring the facility, and physical items, desks, furniture, and such should be moved back, or the beginning of that, on April 15th. So we're looking forward to that. The Healthcare Reform Working Group, obviously, we had our 2-hour intensive presentation yesterday. I was really pleased with the response we had from the community and the number of community members that were here and certainly interested. I mean, first and foremost, we are all consumers of healthcare. So I think the information was a good start for our community and our staff and this board. We know that there will be an impact from healthcare reform. We just don't know what it is. I have to say that we sent out invitations to multiple stakeholder groups, including our labor unions. I may have missed people that were here yesterday. For those representatives of our labor groups that were not here, they certainly could watch it on video, and I would recommend that anybody watch that presentation on healthcare reform, because it will impact all of us. Moving on, our Red Cross Community Disaster Education Training. Remember, this was an initiative that came out of the executive office that we want to do a training for all 1,000 of our employees. It's a 1-hour training basically on home preparedness, and it is being offered on county time. And we had one training with the Department of Transportation, almost all of their staff, and then we had another training of 100+ employees about a week ago. So we are moving forward on that. I really appreciate all the work of our county employees making this training a priority, and I think in the end, again, this is something that will serve all of us. If there is an event in this county, our county employees are disaster service workers, and if they're called up to come back and provide a service, it's good for everyone to know that their families are protected and that they have everything they need, and that people could come back to work. So I'm really appreciative of the Red Cross and their efforts in providing this training for our staff. And I think we've already talked about the need for speed filming. We know that DreamWorks Pictures has begun their filming within the county's borders, mostly around Anderson Valley. I have not been to Anderson Valley since we've started this, so I haven't seen any of the road closures or such, but we do know our county is happy to host this event. We think we'll bring in possibly $1 million in revenue, not to the county coffers, but in general to the whole community, and that also there will be additional funding, we hope, for the Apple Fair. The Chief Probation Officer appointment, our former Chief Probation Officer, Jim Brown, has agreed to stay on and serve in an acting capacity while the county conducts a recruitment for his position. The flyer has gone out. The recruitment will close on April 12th, and we will be working with the courts. This is an appointment that is made by the judges. We do not make this appointment. So for the purpose of the public, I'd like to just clarify that, because I have received questions on that. So we are working with the judges. Jim is staying on, and we hope to move on this month. The Assessment Appeals Board, of course, the Board of Equalization met yesterday morning, as you all know, and the Assessment Appeals Board, we hope, will be up and running by July 1st. Members of the Assessment Appeals Board were here yesterday to observe the BOE, and also County Counsel Tom Parker hosted a training session for the newly appointed members on Thursday, April 4th. Along with that, we anticipate that the Board of Equalization will disband on June 30th and be replaced by the Assessment Appeals Board on July 1. Feasibility study of the exclusive operating area, those community sessions continue. We've had our first round of stakeholder meetings, and we will be having a second round of community-focused outreach next week, April 15th through the 18th. Anybody who's called with information or who has wants to attend a meeting, we've given them the schedule, and also all of the information that we have so far on the feasibility study is on our website, and so you could go to the county website for that. The Indian Gaming Special Distribution Fund, earlier this year we were notified of our $140,000 for grants from the Indian Gaming Fund. We had the application period open February 15th through March 15th. This was publicly noticed. It was in the papers, and our committee that every year we do, the local community benefit committee that awards these funds, they will be holding their meeting, and then more information will be coming back to this board. Budget reports, just to say the departments are working on their 2013-14 budgets with our staff, and we will have, the CEO will have our budget conferences next week, April 15th through the 22nd, with the departments. The budgets don't just appear for the purposes of the public. There's a lot of work that goes into developing those budgets, and the executive office works closely with the departments in hopes that we could keep everybody within budget and agreed upon decisions on those budgets before the end of the year when we bring the budget to this board. Under LEDGE, healthcare reform developments, I will leave that up to Supervisor Brown as far as what's happened with CSAC Board of Directors. I think we've already talked about our rural county representatives for RCRC this morning. You can see some of the areas that we're asking RCRC to look at that benefit Mendocino County. And unless there's anything else, that is it for my report today.
Any questions or comments regarding the CEO's report? The only thing that I wanted to pick up on, again, on this need for speed issue, I think a lot of people are curious about how much revenue is actually going to be derived by the county, and there's all sorts of numbers out there that are really not backed by facts. I've thrown around a few numbers myself, and I regret that I've done that. But I think, well, I don't think, I know that there will be a report made to the county at the conclusion of the filming, you know, some kind of an economic impact report to try to track how much revenue actually did come into the county. It's a hard thing to do because there's so many little transactions and things that happen that have economic impact but are not easy to quantify. But I think it is important, you know, after we do have a major film like this made in Mendocino County, that we have an idea of what the benefit is for the obvious costs that are involved for individuals. And I just want to say, you know, the feedback I've gotten from constituents in the 5th District, which is where the filming is happening, have been, you know, I'd say overwhelmingly positive, although there certainly are people who have been inconvenienced and have let me know that. Okay, any other comments on the CEO's report? Okay, let's do supervisor reports then. Anybody? We usually start with Supervisor Brown because she's always the most organized at this particular part of the agenda. You want to start?
I don't know about that comment because I'm not like Supervisor Jurdy, who actually types it out. Thank you, Dan.
That's true. That's true. He is. He's challenging you for the role of number one at supervisor reports.
First of all, I'm really sorry I didn't bring out my little special thing for Child Abuse Prevention Month to display why all the people were here. But I brought it out this time to remind me that I want to share with you the Children's Action Committee and Delinquency Prevention Commission of Mendocino County will be proudly presenting a World of Music, and it's to be held Saturday, April 27th at Mendocino College Little Theater, starting at 7:30, and they were looking for, and the funds raised will actually go to children's programs here in Mendocino County, and there's a wide array of ones that'll happen. But I wanted to share this card with you. It'll be Saturday, April 27th, 7:30. I hope you'll go. They are looking for heroes, as they call them. The Heroes for Youth of Mendocino County, and actually I was their first donor attending the Policy Committee on Children and Youth, but this will also give youth a real opportunity to be exposed to music in their community. So please try to attend if possible. Then I want to mention that May 29th and 30th, CSAC will be holding their legislative conference in Sacramento. Policies will all be discussed. I'm sure that healthcare reform is going to have a major focus, along with all the realignment on within the criminal justice system. And then all the policy committees will be meeting, as well as board of directors. So if you didn't receive one of these and want more information, I have mine here. I'd be happy to share it with you. Again, a reminder that Inland Water and Power Commission all boards meeting will be held May 9th at 6 o'clock, and it will be at Ukiah Conference Center. And then Area Agency on Aging, I reported to you at the last board meeting, we had a special meeting coming up for that particular entity based on the fact that a letter had been issued for the termination of the food service program at Lucerne Alpine Senior Center. And I felt it would be a very sad meeting because of the actions that was being appealed. And I'm very, very happy to report that their board of directors is really worked within 23 days, hired a new director. The new director has turned that program around. So the governing board actually voted to suspend the termination letter as long as improvements continued, because we were coming up very close to the 30 days of when the contract would be terminated. We have staff checking on it weekly, but it turned out to be a very pleasant meeting, a very big surprise, and I think they're headed in the right direction, so that's a win-win situation. An update on invasive aquatic species, quagga mussel. April 28th, there will be a tour of the Santa Clara Boat Inspection Program. Anyone that would like to attend that, please let me know. I'll share the information. And then I want to announce that Popeye the mussel sniffing dog returns. And Popeye will be both at Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino. Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July weekend, August 3rd and 4th, and also over Labor Day weekend. And the Army Corps is actually going to participate with us and supports the inspections that we will be having. On the AB 2443 funding, now that is under the Department of Boating and Waterways, and it's to set up a process of financing inspection programs in the state of California. The consortium is really working closely. Sonoma County Supervisor Mike McGuire has been contacted regarding the committee and its plans, and has not as yet been appointed, but hopefully he will. Guess that would be it on that particular one, except if you want more updates, or the public does, you can go to the Don't Move a Mussel website and receive that information. Been working on a proclamation and with a planning group for the 4-H, California 4-H Centennial Celebration that'll be scheduled for May 5th, and it'll be at the Hopland Research Station and the Rod Shippey Building. Sounds like it's really going to be fun, and the proclamation will be coming forth at our next meeting. Fishnet 4C has reached the end of its legacy. So we will be removing it from our 2014 list of assignments. And actually, it was a 16-year run. I received the final reports from Samuel Hertzberg, and it's pretty impressive. Mendocino County actually didn't participate with Fishnet 4C as closely as they did with the 5-county effort because there was only a portion of the Russian River from Sonoma County line north that was in that. All our other watersheds were listed in the Northern California ESU under the Endangered Species Act. So Mendocino mainly participated with the 5C group, although Howard DeShiel was very good in putting together what had happened in the Russian River watershed and in order to have input on the grant funding that actually ran Fishnet 4C for Monterey, Santa Cruz, San Mateo, Marin, Sonoma. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on to Supervisor Pinches, I see the district attorney is sitting out there very patiently. David, did you have something you wanted to, or were you?
I'm just practicing law by watching you guys.
Somebody must have told us.
Keep on practicing.
May I ask him or say something to him?
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Of course.
I want to apologize that we didn't get to the proclamation yesterday.
Yeah, I did.
Did you?
I apologized on behalf of the board,
All
but
right.
we can apologize more if we want.
Oh, okay.
The chair did it yesterday. I apologize,
Okay.
but it was a very busy day. We had a lot of
Yeah.
things at the courthouse yesterday.
So we had a lot of business here.
And I saw that. My staff was reluctant to come down here because they had so much to do. I kind of imposed myself on them. They came down, and as it was continuing on, they were getting antsy by the second, so I said, okay, let's get back to work, and so we left.
Well, I'll offer the chair to go to the courthouse and read the proclamation and present it.
Sure, I'll do anything to get back into your good graces, David. Thank you, David. Supervisor Pinches.
Just briefly, the Willis Bypass project is moving forward. Seems to be without a hitch. I don't see any. There's no protesters on site this week, or at least as of this morning when I come by. Also, we got the brand new Willis Hospital is getting well underway. If you ever go by there, you can stop that. You can see the construction going up real briefly, and also the college expansion project. So there's a lot of construction work going on this spring and summer in the 3rd District.
Very good. Supervisor Jurdy.
Well, I did give you a written report, but I'll just summarize it for the audience who may not look at the online edition of our packet. So, as you know, this is the first time I've ever served on the MTA board, so I'm getting familiar with what they're doing, and I just wanted to give a status report. In the last 3 months, we concluded a interview process for a new general manager. As you know, Bruce Richards retired after over 30 years at MTA, and we had interviews with 4 qualified candidates. I was impressed with the candidates, and I think it probably is public information who the job's been offered to, but I feel like I'll leave it to MTA to roll out the announcement. But she will be at work on June 15th. And also, you may have noticed on the streets of certainly of Ukiah, the full 40-foot buses, they now have 5 new ones on the road. 3 more will be built by the end of the year. They're assembled in Hayward, and they travel twice as far in a gallon of gas, and they are much cleaner than the buses they replaced in terms of fuel emissions. So and those were funded with grants that were for transit. Then finally, the other big news would be the big savings on the transit facilities in Ukiah with the market the way it is and bids coming in very competitively on all construction projects. The bids have come in much lower than anticipated. So originally they anticipated it would be $22 million to build the facility. They've now built the first phase. The solar canopy will be phase 2, and the offices will be phase 3. They now anticipate when all 3 phases are built, instead of costing $22 million, it'll be $10.8 million. So I think that's good news as well. And so those are sort of the main highlights of things I've seen in the first 3 months on the MTA board, and I just wanted to reference those. I have several meetings going on outside of these meetings. The MCOG board did not meet in April, but we'll meet again in May. Phil Dow and Janet Orth and Loretta and I all attended the CalCog conference, which is sort of their small state association for COGs. And I'll have a written report on sort of the highlights of that, what I gathered from that. I haven't had time to churn that out yet. And anyway, so I think that's the main items I wanted to run through right now.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor McCowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The North Coast Railroad Association will be meeting in Eureka tomorrow. We will be considering an agreement that with a private party that will provide for the cleanup of the depot site pursuant to a remedial action plan that's already been approved. The cleanup is necessary prior to a sale to the administrative office of the courts of a portion of the depot property. The agreement would also involve a right of first refusal to the third party doing the cleanup, that they would have the opportunity to purchase the balance of the depot property other than that portion upon which the historic depot building itself sits, which that is leased to the city of Ukiah under a long-term agreement. I'm optimistic that that agreement will be approved by the full NCRA board tomorrow, and the cleanup will move forward, and then we'll find out if the administrative office of the courts really wants to purchase that site for a new courthouse. And of course, actual construction has been delayed a year, and that's always subject to change going forward. It's been a moving target all along. Also, what most of us call mental health court.
I got a question on the railroad before you move forward.
Sure.
If you sell that depot property to the courts, how will that affect the long-term operations, say if the train wanted to go to Eureka or even through the canyon? How would that affect that?
Well, I don't think it affects going through the canyon. We're a long way away from having that discussion, but the western 1/8 of the depot property is exempted from the sales. So the actual portion of the line necessary to operate the trains is not going to be sold.
Even if trucks come in there to load and unload, it won't affect that? I mean, if it gets going, it's a freight.
There's sightings north of Perkins, and so all this has been cleared with the operator, that we're not doing anything that the operator believes would impede his operations. So that was the first priority. Also, as you may know, there was a contribution approved by the California Transportation Commission through Caltrans that contributed to the funding for the purchase of the line. And so under the agreement, a portion of the proceeds is going to go back to reimburse Caltrans.
Commonly what they call the Q fund.
Mm-hmm. And then with regard to what most participants call mental health court, but what Judge Moorman more modestly calls the Thursday 11 a.m. calendar, we have had referrals to that calendar. There have been, I think, 2 court hearings at this point, so we do have participants. It's a modest beginning. It is moving forward. The larger group involved in planning for this continues to meet, and but it's really very exciting that we actually have people participating in the program now, with, of course, the cooperation not only of Judge Moorman, but District Attorney Eister, Public Defender Thompson, Probation Office, and Mental Health. So,
and Clay Brennan.
That's good news. And I want to mention, because the chair may be too modest, but Last Friday, the ABC Coalition had their annual luncheon where they invite the chair of the board and the mayors of the cities to address the group on basically the state of their agencies and the outlook for the coming year. And our chair gave a very excellent presentation focused on the budget and the necessity for economic development.
Thank you. Okay, just a few really quick things. I wanted the board to be aware that the monitoring enterprise, which came before us, we had Liz Whiteman and Tess Friedenberg come before us to talk about this $4 million that's going to be done going to be spent in our area, which is basically Alder Creek, near Point Arena up to the Oregon border. $4 million will be spent on baseline monitoring. And I've had several meetings, and I think Supervisor Jurdy has been participating as well in some of these discussions regarding that process moving forward. We have received the draft RFP. That has been out for public comment. Unfortunately, I didn't get word of that until the day after our last board meeting, and the public comment period, again, this is on the draft of the RFP. So we had an agreement with Monitoring Enterprise that before they finalize the RFP, they would put that out in draft form and invite comment. The comment period, again, as I said, began the day after our last meeting on March 27th and continues until tomorrow. So I'm mostly stating that just for the board's information that this thing is moving forward. I think it's being done with a lot of deliberation, in the sense that, you know, they're trying to bring everybody along slowly because, as everybody knows, we almost had kind of a train wreck in the first part of this process. And we've gotten some good help from the beginning on this, from not only from Monitoring Enterprise, but also from the Ocean Protection Council. And of course, that the chair of that is the director of the Resources Agency, who is the whose name just slipped my mind, the former state senator, John Laird, has been very helpful to us. Also, thank you, Supervisor Brown. Also, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and California Sea Grant have all been participating in moving this forward. So we'll probably see an RFP coming down the line very shortly after this comment period is over, depending on how many comments they have to deal with. And so we're moving forward. And again, the hope is to have this $4 million spent here on the North Coast, and a substantial amount of it actually spent here in Mendocino County. And there's some concerns that have been raised about that because of the central role that's being played by Humboldt State University. But you know, I think they've gone out of their way. You know, they've sent their whole faculty down here and their staff down here to make sure that we're partners with them and that they're not just stealing the show. Supervisor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Hamburg, and I sure appreciate the update because it was very concerning to me when it all started coming down and how that was going to look in the future. So I appreciate your report very much.
Okay, I also want to mention that on March 27th, at least a couple of us attended the Jim Brown's retirement party. It was a very nice event held at Juvenile Hall. There were, I don't know, maybe, you know, close to 100 people there, and it was very nice to be able to wish Jim a good retirement ahead. And
he's back.
He's back? Well, anyway.
For a short time.
He left for a short time. Also, on the 29th, I was in Point Arena. Former Supervisor Kendall Smith was there as well, and we were, in addition to Congressman Huffman, and this was a dedication for the next portion of the Stornetta Public Lands. And amazingly, in Point Arena, it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous day, and we had a lot of, there had been an electrical outage earlier in the day, so the schools were closed, so we got a bevy of school children out there on the bluffs, and it was a very, very beautiful day. And, you know, I think the real question about the Stornetta lands out there is whether the use by human beings is going to do more damage than the use by cattle over the last century. Because if you look at the way that land has been preserved, while it has been used by the livestock industry, it's absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, I think the concern is whether human beings will treat it as well as the cows did all those years. Supervisor Brown?
And I'd like to add to that, the family were very good stewards of the land.
Yeah.
They were cattle, dairy, ranchers, sheep, and they also grew sweet peas, snap peas, and what have you.
Yeah.
And I know Millie, who passed away just before the lands really changed, she was very concerned because the family used to protect that coastline.
Yeah.
They would open, so many days a year to local abalone hunters.
Right.
Wasn't a greater, public, but they really preserved those lands, and I think it is we should give a tribute to them for doing such, really.
Yeah. Supervisor Pinches.
Well, I think that's a bigger issue too, there's a big movement to running all livestock grazing off our public lands, and they're doing a pretty good job of that. And it's a real question of now we replace it with people that are not going to take near as good a care of it.
Well, I think it's a real concern. I mean, it sounds kind of funny at first, but I don't think it's funny. I think it's very real.
Another point too, we're conserving and preserving ourselves right out of business in this county.
Okay. We've heard that speech before.
Another point I'd like to make. Did you read the article in the Chronicle the other day about how the fingerling salmon are doing a lot better in the rice fields and better than twice as good? They're growing twice in the rice fields before they turn them in the delta.
Perfect.
To
Good.
go out.
Good. I also want to mention that there's been some talk in this boardroom about this whole issue of keeping local investment dollars or keeping our local tax dollars local. And that issue and associated issues will be discussed at the Public Banking Institute's conference, which will be at Dominican University in San Rafael from June 2nd to June 4th. And I know that a lot of county supervisors from around the Bay Area and the North Coast are going to be attending that conference. They have some nationally known speakers like Matt Taibbi and Ellen Brown, Garal Paravitz. And it's going to be, I'm going to attend. I know some colleagues in Sonoma County and Humboldt County who are going to attend. So, if you're interested, go to publicbankinginstitute.org. The conference is going to be full. At least based on all the pre-registration. So if you're interested in that, I'm also going to extend word to the treasurer, because I think this is kind of right up her alley, and she's been hearing from a lot of people about, well, why can't we use part of the investment pool locally, or, why can't, all these things are very complicated issues, but there is going to be this conference, and I think it's going to flesh out a lot of those issues. I attended a meeting of the MPIC board and social services staff. The CEO was there to discuss some of the issues that have arisen between HHSA and MPIC, and I think we're moving forward and trying to iron those issues out. I thought it was a really good meeting, and as I've said to the CEO, we've got some really high-powered local business people who are volunteering to participate on the MPIC board, and I just want to see that their efforts are appreciated and that they're allowed to lend that expertise to, to the good functioning of the Private Industry Council here in Mendocino County. Let's see. I guess that's about it. Okay. Well, trying to finish on time here. Any final comments before we break for lunch? Okay, we'll be back in session at 1:30, and we will have closed session at the end of our regular agenda.
And we get a full lunch.
And we get a full lunch. We'll be back in session, and we'll go immediately to our 1:30 timed item, which is a notice public hearing to consider approval of modifications to the county fee schedule effective July 2013. And further adoption of a resolution amending the master fee schedule. And the executive office is the sponsor of this item. And Ms. Angela, shall we go straight to Mr. Merritt? Okay, Brandon, take it away.
Oh, there we go. Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Brandon Merritt. I'm from the Executive Office. I'm here today to present you the fee hearings to modify, introduce, reduce, or increase fees for the fiscal year 2013-2014. This fee hearing, we have 2 separate departments. All departments across the county were invited to submit fee modification proposals. And this time around, we have environmental health and agriculture submitting fee proposal for changes. And the department heads are here today, Dave Jensen from environmental health and Chuck Morse from agriculture. So as you can see here, the resolution adopted is to modify the resolution number 12-088 adopted June 12th, 2012, and to modify the master fee schedule Exhibit X. And as you can see, the fee changes, if you adopt them today, will go into effect July 1st, 2013. Public intent, public notice, was established. As you can see, that is an agenda item here today. Proof of publication submitted to the Ukiah Daily Journal. And that is also in your packet. And then today, please see attached my Mendocino County memorandum describing the fee recovery, cost recovery, For agriculture, we have a total of $3,625. And for environmental health, we have a total of $3,725 for a total of $7,350 in total cost recovery. And you can see those specific proposed fees in the last parts of the agenda packet. We can start however you like with agriculture or environmental health.
Okay. The first thing I actually need to start with is to open the public hearing. And we will start with the clerk noting any correspondence and telephone calls that have been received regarding this item.
No correspondence has been received on this item.
Okay. Is that the staff presentation? Have you completed that, or you are here to answer questions as we go forward?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, we'll take input from department heads who are here on this item. And excuse me, Supervisor Pinches, you had a comment?
Well, just a question here.
Yeah.
On these. Can I go forward on that?
Yeah.
On the environmental, it's health. It says that their total annual cost per sanitarian work hour is $130.66. That's an unbelievable per hour cost. Is that right? Accurate?
Okay, we have Dave Jensen here from Environmental Health. Dave, would you come up?
I mean, in light of all county employees took a 10% pay cut last year, I mean, I don't, even with a benefit package, how can we come to that $130 per hour?
David Jensen from Environmental Health. I got that, we got that number from the auditor's office. So I can neither confirm nor deny that number. It's just simply the number that we were given. As is typical every year, we submit our information to that office, and they give us back an hourly cost rate. Last year it was $128. He informed us that this year it's $130. He asked if we wanted to increase our number. I said, no, sir. Thank you very much. For $2, we're staying at our old rate. I'm sorry, I cannot explain to you exactly the factors that go into that number.
But there are some fee increases, right? I'm looking in the column here. Under environmental health land use, there are some fee increases.
We have, I believe that we've asked for one fee increase this year. We've asked for a $9 increase for the cost of farmers market permits, which is offset by a what we've Shall I just jump into the presentation? At
Yeah,
this
go
point?
ahead, Dave.
Okay, very good. This year in our fee request, we've had to add some new fees to implement the cottage food operations program that was implemented by the state of California effective January 1 of this year. So those are new fees. That's a new program, and that program very quickly allows people to manufacture certain food products in their home and then either sell directly to the public, which is the Class A. And it's not a permit. Class A, there are two, Class A and Class B. It gets kind of complicated because it came out of Sacramento. There's Class A, which is the simple format. It's a registration, not a permit. The cottage food operator notifies the county and registers with us, telling us that they're going to make granola, chocolate dipped dried fruits, some sort of cottage food product that's on a list that was developed by the state of California. And we take that registration information, we take their label, they follow the rules, and they can sell to you. You can go to their house and buy it. They can come to your house and deliver it. It's a direct sale between the producer and the consumer. There's then a Class B permit, which is an actual permit. This is where the home operator manufactures bakes pies or cupcakes or cookies. And rather than sell them directly to you or have you come to their house, they take it to Harvest Market. And Harvest Market sells it indirectly to the public. Or they take it to Branches, and Branches sells slices of those cakes indirectly to the public. That requires an actual permit. That permit requires us to one time go to their house and inspect their kitchen facilities. It's a one-time inspection. We go out, and so that drives the fees up higher for that second level of permitting.
Would these individuals also take your class that you have here?
Yes, there is an educational requirement that the state has failed to make good on yet. So they were going to offer a separate class, and then they notified us that that's been taken off the table, no money. So we're in the meantime taking our food safety class and using that as an appreciable substitute for the state class. Now, this gets even a little bit more confusing because you see here on this, there's actually 4 entries. And so we've got a Class A registration, and then we have down here Class A registration with a bunch of letters. And what those letters mean is non-potentially hazardous food, temporary food facility permit. That second component is essentially a community event, temporary food facility permit that you would have to buy anyway. We put it on here at the request of Brian Hoy, my consumer protection team leader. We included that as a separate fee just to help avoid confusion. I can see what's going to happen. People are going to say, I've got a permit from the county, so I can go to these events and sell my food. Well, no, you can't, because that second step of going to an event to sell your food, whether you're cottage food industry or whoever you are, requires a secondary permit. And for the Delta, too many notes here, $91, you can do that all year long. And so we've included that as an option, kind of an add-on to the basic permit. It's not required, but if you opt for that community event layer, we'll include that at the same price as a permit item. Bottom line, we have 2 new fees to cover these 2 new classifications of home cooking operations. I anticipate that you'll want to know how because, you know, what are these? $63 for one and $182 for the next. How does this stack up to the rest of the world? So right now, there are 31 counties that have posted their fee schedules for this new operation online through the Environmental Health Director's website. And so far, the statewide average for the level A registration is $109 throughout the state of California. Mendocino County is charging $64. The average for the Part B permit is $255 across the state of California. We are charging $182. We are keeping our costs lower. We anticipate that we can operate within those levels through efficiency of operations. And I certainly hope that we will not have to come back next year and say, you know, we underbid this job, we need more. I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm fairly confident in our estimates here. Locally, the 4 neighboring counties, Humboldt, Lake, Sonoma, and Napa. Again, I don't want to get too deep into these details, but for our $63 permit, Humboldt is $63, Lake is $165. Sonoma is $139 and Napa is $119. Those 4 counties, the average Part A registration is $121. We're asking $63 for the Class A registration. Yeah, 64. Sorry.
Supervisor Pinchas.
Okay, Dave, while we got you up there.
Yeah.
On these septic tank, I see the installation. You went down on the installation destruction. It used to be 1,800, and then or no, that's the revenue increase. But when you if you want to replace your septic tank, do you got to pay the destruction fee plus the installation? Is that 2 separate fees? So you'd have to pay for the destruction. You'd have to pay the 165 plus the 345. I mean, it just seems to me it takes one site inspector to go out and site inspect all that, so why is there?
Thank you. I was hoping you'd say that, because in reality there are 2 fees on the books. There's a septic tank installation and a septic tank destruction. And oftentimes when we replace a system, we have to destroy an old tank. We have historically, for that reason, we're out there once. We've thrown in for free that destruction. Over the years, we've opted not to charge for the destruction. This fee, what you can see here, what we're trying to do is, we've got a problem with septic tank destruction. Simple. We've got a very inexpensive permit whenever we need to just do that one thing. Yeah. If we're out there for another thing, we'll roll it in. What happens when we need to replace a tank? I go to my old fee schedule, and I didn't have a septic tank replacement fee. I had a septic system replacement fee. And what I'm asking from the board this year is that we make that right. Because that permit for the septic tank replacement was based on a much larger level of effort. That was based on me going out and inspecting the installation of the lines and the contour of the site and all that other work. It's much simpler just to replace a tank. And so I looked at what our true costs were on a tank replacement, and I thought, I need a new fee. And I thought, no, David, that septic tank destruction fee is so close to what our cost for a new tank installation would be. Let's get creative here. Let's take that septic tank installation, pull it out of the septic system repair, and include that with a septic tank destruction/installation permit, which is in the ballpark of what we ought to be charging for that time out in the field.
Makes a lot more sense.
A lot more sense. We've been struggling Supervisor Pinches, I've personally been struggling with this for years, trying to find an equitable way, and we've kind of gerrymandered backdoor things of not charging for the evaluation fee, not requiring a Carl Ritteman do the design work in order to keep that cost down. This will really, truly enable us to charge an equitable fee for that service. And it's I believe that this is a service that we owe the public.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Dave?
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may just make sure I have that, a shorter way to saying that is basically we have come up with a permit that allows the public to only pay for the service that they're receiving.
That is correct. That's very well said.
Which we should have been doing
Yes.
that years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And we continue to look for these opportunities. We do time studies on our services, and we don't get 100% payback. Which is fine. We're keeping our doors open. That's the bottom line. So we're continuing to look for ways to get there.
Okay, I don't see any other questions.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
Thank you very much.
So at this point, would the board like to call up Chuck Morse from the Department of Agriculture to
Only if we have a question on his fees.
Does anyone have any questions of the Ag Commissioner? Carrie, you must have questions for the Ag Commissioner.
Believe it or not, no.
If there are no questions,
Chuck, do you have anything you want to say to the board regarding your fee schedule? No?
I think it's pretty self-evident.
You're cool? Okay. All right. Well, according to my script here, the next thing is for the staff to present final remarks.
Yes, so may I remind the board that these fee hearings are pursuant to County Policy Number 47, and you can get that out if you'd like. So the fee schedule policy, as it is titled, allows the county to establish and change certain fees or service charges subject to being within legal boundaries within California state law to accomplish full cost recovery for services rendered by the county. So these fee hearings are an opportunity for the supervisors to review services at each departmental level and if they so choose to raise or lower those fees or reduce them and eliminate them entirely. So this is as pursuant to Master Fee Schedule policy. All California code requirements have been followed in terms of public notice timelines, 14-day advance notice for public, and then also that's 14-day for interested parties, and then a 10-day advance timeline notice for the public. So those timelines have been followed. Public notice was sent out, Ukiah Daily Journal, March 29th.
Got it.
More than 10 days in advance.
Okay.
And so as we conclude these fee hearings, what's left to do now is to approve the resolution submitted to the board. The resolution modifies the master fee schedule to introduce these new fees or reduce and eliminate some fees as has been proposed to you today, both in environmental health and agriculture. So if the board so chooses, as they see in their agenda summary, they may move to adopt a resolution approving the proposed fee modifications to the master fee schedule effective July 1st, 2013, authorizing the chair to sign the same. Or they may, as an alternative, take no action, requesting departments to provide additional information.
Okay, thank you very much, Brandon. We have a question from Supervisor Pinches.
Well, I guess the estimated fee increase will be $7,350.
Yes,
yeah.
And that is the just the full.
The full package.
The full, if you add them all up,
Yeah.
I want to say summary, but that's not the right word. The full addition of all these charges of the total cost recovery for these specific fees that are listed here today on these fee proposal charts.
Basically, if you took away the new fees that are going to be charged, you'd have a net fee increase on the minus side if you took away the new fees that are being proposed.
Yeah, so the way that $7,350 is calculated is just the full amount of cost recovery
But if
from
you
these
took away the
specific
new
fees.
fees, then you actually have no fee increases. Basically. I mean, there are some, but the net would be, if you took away the new fees, what the revenue is going to be from the new fees, you would end up with a negative minus side on the, in your overall fee increases, if you took out the new fees.
Well, I think the new fees as introduced in environmental health would, the addition of those, there's 4 new fees, that would only add up to approximately $550. So is that what you're saying, Supervisor Pinches?
Well, I'm really pleased, because it seems like every year I've went through this battle and I've always lost the battle to my money to reduce, because my philosophy is that people, for the taxes they pay, get a certain amount of service, and so you can't be, basically fee oriented. But I'll support this, because I think the department has done a good job on keeping their fee service at a level that people can afford.
Thank you, Supervisor. Before we get to a motion, I want to ask if there's any member of the public who would like to address the board regarding the fee schedule. Okay, I would entertain a motion. Supervisor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Hamburg. I just wanted to point out, and I'm not sure if Mr. Merritt has seen this email. It comes from a constituent of mine, Eric Sunsweet. I did read it over. I don't agree with him, but I did want to point it out as a part of the public information process.
Thank you, Supervisor.
May I take a moment to read his submitted email before I respond to that?
Well, I'm not sure we really need to do that.
Okay.
This is not, this came in at 1:44
It's all been distributed
today, and it's all been distributed to the board members. So I would like to entertain a motion.
I will second Supervisor Pinch's
motion
to approve.
I didn't make the motion.
You said you supported it.
I'm not going to break my track record now. I've never.
He doesn't want his fingerprints on this.
In the history on the Board of Supervisors, I've never made a motion for fee increases. So I don't see any good reason to start right now.
But as you pointed out, there are some new fees.
I would support it.
But see, if you did that, the rest of us, all 4 of us, would second.
Oh, I got a good track record going. I'm not going to break it.
Is there a brave soul among the other 3 of you?
I'll move to approve.
Yes, Supervisor Jurdy stepping right up to the plate. Supervisor McCowan is a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me off the hook.
Do not want you to be on the hook, John. On this item? On the item of the fee increases? Oh, 5-6. Okay. Where are we going now, Tim? What do we got left?
Will you take him to see
good.
Nicole? He needs some signed copy of an
Okay, the next item on our agenda today will be the Ag Commissioner, who is here for what item is this, please? Help me.
Item number
5F.
5F.
Thank you. Item number 5F, and Chuck Morris is here. And item number 5F is the informational presentation by the Ag Commissioner, Sealer of Weights and Measures, providing the Board of Supervisors with our annual update. And Mr. Morris, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Yes.
CEO Angelo, County Council. I appreciate this opportunity to do a 2012 review for the Department of Agriculture activities. Try not to administer death by PowerPoint here. I have a lot of pictures. It's after lunch, or a lot of slides and pictures, so I'll be going through them very quickly, just touching on the high points. And you all received copies, I believe, as well?
Yes.
So, very good.
Yes.
Thank you. So there's our really nice office out on right out on the corner, Bush and Low Gap. Challenging for the longest run-on sentence for our mission statement there. County Council might be able to better that one. Some legal verbiage, I'm sure. So the overview will cover these three basic areas.
Sounds like one of our proclamations. Yeah, it reads like, I should say.
So these are the programs within the Ag Department. I actually left one off. We have our Wildlife Services program as well. We'll be going through all these very quickly. And then weights and measures as well. We'll be going through the 5 major programs that we cover in weights and measures. So jumping right into pest detection, 3 fundamental programs that are out there are exotic fruit flies and other pests that we trap for. Medfly, gypsy moth, Japanese beetle, oriental fruit fly, melon fruit fly. Those are in the urban. Light brown apple moth, LBAM, if you don't know the acronym. And European grapevine moth as well. There's some of our traps. So upper left is a medfly trap. Upper right is gypsy moth. Lower right, Japanese beetle trap. And lower left, that would be European grapevine moth. So when you see those orange delta traps out in the vineyards, that's our EGVM trapping. The pest management side of things, glasswing sharpshooter takes a lot of our time in this specific program, but doing both on the trapping side and incoming plant shipment inspection, our invasive weed activities, biocontrol, et cetera there, and also the abatement authority for the ag commissioners under the pest management side. So there's our glasswing, glasswing sharpshooter trapper, shell green. Location should look familiar. It's right out the front door. Crepe myrtle is one of the favorite hosts for this pest. So you see these yellow panel traps around the counties and very often in our nurseries. We actually have more traps in our nurseries than we do in our urban settings. Again, to monitor for any possible adults on incoming shipments. Then we do get our incoming shipments, so this is pretty much the scenario. Or we'll have a biologist go out and examine these plants, and what we're looking for is, well, the glasswing sharpshooter is the upper right there. It's kind of like the B-52 in the sharpshooter world, and that's part of the issue with it. But the middle slide shows, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a freshly laid egg mass just under the top dermal layer of usually the bottom side of the leaves. Lower right-hand corner, that's what an egg mass will look like when all of the larvae have successfully emerged. That middle picture on the bottom, that's a parasitic wasp inserting eggs into those larval chambers. And then that's what we're hoping to see on the bottom left is an egg mass that's been parasitized. Hopefully we don't find egg masses at all. That's the real key. And the program has gotten very good over the years statewide. It started in Southern California and was spread through the nursery trade, but it's improved dramatically. The fines are way down. Going to the pest eradication program, European grapevine moth obviously is kind of a shining example for us in that we were able to achieve eradication with the help of the federal, state, and definitely our growers here in the county. And really our weed eradication efforts are a lot of the work that we put into this, and there's just a few. To our knowledge, we've eradicated the giant knotweed up in, well, it's up on the coast, I think right by Seaside Beach there. That sharp turn in the road that went to the left and down. Caltrans is reconfiguring that. So a number of groups got together and did their best to eradicate the giant knotweed location there before that disturbance had to occur for the realignment. And we think we've got eradication on toadflax and little ground cover called bitty bitty, but it's quite invasive. So upper left, that's a distaff thistle. Upper right is Dalmatian toadflax, which is a beautiful plant. It's in the snapdragon family. People will walk around with the bouquets of it. It's so pretty, but they're spreading seed. Lower right is purple star thistle, and then lower left is spotted knapweed. The bracts on the flower heads there have those dark colorations on them. And I might say that the purple star thistle on the lower right, you know, livestock and horses, they'll push through yellow star thistle or even the mummified yellow star thistle, but they won't push through this stuff. This is like yellow star thistle on steroids. It's really wicked stuff, and we see
when
it
you say, I don't know what that push through means.
they'll
Reach down to eat around it.
yeah,
they'll eat around it.
It's a little annoying for them to push through it, but they can move the plants around and pick out the grasses as they're starting to come up.
With the yellow star thistle.
Yes.
Supervisor Hamburg, I need to give you a lesson in ranching.
Boy, you don't need to give me a lesson in thistles, though. I tell you, I've dealt with a lot of thistles over the years, and still am.
Our pest exclusion program. So we, on a daily basis, we have inspectors at both the UPS and the FedEx hubs. They hold the incoming plant packages for us, and we examine those packages, profile them, and open any packages that we have cause to believe warrant further inspection. Hold release on bulk plant shipments, so people will receive semi-load shipments at a time, and these shipments will come in with a hold on their delivery. They're instructed to call the Ag Commissioner's office and get an inspection, get them cleared. All the plant quarantines for both counties within the state, other states, and then foreign countries as well, so that's export certification. We're doing a lot less export certification now that the pear shed is no longer in operation. And other sorts of hold releases as well, as far as exclusion. And gypsy moth is one of the pests that continually gets introduced to California every year, and we take very seriously all the quarantine documents that we get in the office that have to do with gypsy moth. So on this slide, I did some of the numbers. You can see 2011 versus 2012. Not too many federal phytosanitary certificates, and we are writing paperwork for trade to foreign countries where our biologists are certified and they're federal cooperators, basically, and they're very time-consuming because we have to get them right because we're possibly impacting relations and trade with our foreign trading partners. So a fair amount of work goes into those federal phytosanitary certificates. All of the sudden oak death activities are also in exclusion. So we have 5 nurseries in the county that are have host material, and they want to ship all the time. So once every 30 days, we have to go out and do a visual walking inspection for any symptoms. Once a year, we have to do 40 sample. There's 5 leaf samples on any given host. We have to do 40 different samples at every nursery, and then those get processed at the state lab. And we also examine our Christmas tree operations as well. Pesticide regulation. So again, this is another program that takes quite a bit of effort. You can see the various inspections that we do. Remember that we also do all the structural enforcement. Maintenance gardener, where their pesticide applications are just incidental to the real work that they're doing. Just maybe spraying around sprinkler heads or cracks in sidewalks, things of that nature. A lot of licensing and fair amount of investigations. It seems like we always have a couple investigations going at any given point in time. Antimicrobials seem to be the bulk, industrial type accidents with disinfectants. This slide was just a little reminder of some of the things we do. The application specific, we've got field worker, a couple of personal protective equipment things, and I threw the wine barrel in there just because I think people don't realize that when sulfur dioxide is used for mold control or basically mold control in barrels, it's actually being used as a pesticide. So we are charged with making sure that the regulations and the proper application techniques, et cetera, are met with that. A little sidelight to that, when it's used to stop fermentation or control wild yeast in the winemaking process, OSHA gets to deal with it. So. Our nursery program, we have over 50 nurseries just through a 3-year history up there. 2010, we had the European grapevine moth, and I was a biologist on staff at the time, and I just was not able to get out and do our nurseries. So those percentage increases look big. We're going to continue to try and get as many done per year as we can. This isn't really a nursery, but it's an awfully beautiful lavender production site, and I couldn't resist. This is up in Laytonville. The organic program. The numbers are up on the screen there. We had a very aggressive contract from the state of California in the 11-12 fiscal, and so those numbers that are up there, those numbers of inspections reflect that. It was a little bit too aggressive, quite frankly, given the nature of our organic program here in this county. We asked for a little bit of a reduction, and they got it to us, which was fine. So you can see the numbers. And there's two different worlds of organic in California. There's the state program, which has been in place since 1990, which we do through the Department of Agriculture, enforcing Food and Ag Code. And in 2003, the National Organic Program came into play. So I just threw a couple of the certifiers emblems up there. No promotion intended. Just a little reminder that there's two different worlds of organic. Direct marketing, 100+ certified producer certificates, and obviously that was part of the previous item that we just covered here. We did ask for a little bit of an increase in the producer certificate cost. We actually do more like 120 roughly per year, and it's a fair amount of time in our office. 8 markets, a couple market inspections a year. The McFarm, or the local group that coordinates the certified farmers markets, and the market managers, they appreciate us being out, having a higher profile at the markets, trying to keep the integrity of the markets intact, and the producers knowing that we're out there. So we are doing more producer growing ground inspections to kind of close the loop, make sure that nobody's selling product not of their own production. Typical farmers market look there, and I just threw this in as every year all the agricultural commissioners are mandated to produce a crop report for the secretary, and I present it to this board prior to getting it to the secretary as well. So that's last year's, obviously, and I'm in the process of collating the numbers right now for 2012. Okay, we'll jump to weights and measures. I subtracted out the 1,500 plus water, vapor, and electric meters that are in a sub-metering environment that are owned by the business. Those are a once every 10-year test requirement. That leaves almost 1,800 devices requiring annual testing. And then I ran the numbers down, both this slide and the next, in decreasing.
Could you go back?
Sure.
Chuck, just to the first one. Yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
look at that small computing scales.
And the LPG is the liquid side of things, so it's the delivery trucks and the stationary devices you would see at a gas station or a hardware store or something like that. So this typical fuel dispenser, obviously, there's 2 nozzles there, 1 pay point, 1 display panel. There's 4 meters on this side of this stanchion, if you will, this pump. We have to test all 4 of those individually. As you can see, they've got seals above them there, above the name of the grade there. So this is the process. Each test requires 2 drafts. We take a 5-gallon draft at full speed, wide open. We pump exactly 5 gallons off the pump, and then the slide to the left, the prover that Ray is filling there, you can see the neck, it narrows down, and then it's a very calibrated 5-gallon measure, basically in 0. There's a plus and minus graduations on that neck, and there's a 5 cubic inch tolerance in a 5-gallon draft. So we do a fast run, then we do a slow run. So we put that measuring chamber, we put that meter under a little bit more stress, just to make sure that it's still delivering the correct quantity of fuel in a very slow delivery environment. So that's why the 2 cans are side by side. So he'll take the drafts. If everything's fine, we'll go ahead and seal it. If not, we'll go ahead and take enforcement action one way or another, if it's either above or below. Absolutely zero. Yes.
What do you do with the 5 gallons? Do you put it in your gas tank or?
The picture on the right is Ray returning to storage.
Oh, okay.
So he's parked his vehicle strategically over by the return to storage facility, or the plate in the ground there. So yeah, that's an inverted funnel that he's pouring into, and there's important technique in all of this. You know, we have to avoid sparking, and you can see this cone, this orange cone that's next to Ray. They must be 2.5 feet tall, and they still get run over. It seems people are not too attentive sometime, or their focus might be elsewhere when they're coming up to get gas. So it's a risky environment out there.
Supervisor Pinches.
What's the difference in percentage of difference between, say, gasoline at a 30-degree weather and gasoline at 100-degree weather? What's the volume difference?
Temperature correction is actually a pretty significant issue. The Costco's are actually converting all their pumps over to temperature correction. That study was done a couple years ago here in California, so they took measurements in Imperial and they took measurements in cold environs as well, and what they discovered was that the first drafts in the morning are going to, or if the pump has sat for a long time with no fuel moving through it to cool it down, then there could be a very slight variation, but they didn't determine that it was significant enough to mandate temperature compensating devices on fuel.
Because I know in the old days, loggers would never have their fuel delivered past about 8 o'clock in the morning, because it was big concern.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like when you're getting a 10,000 gallon order of fuel or something.
Mm-hmm. And our bulk fuel delivery, that's another one of the, I don't really have a slide for that one in here, but that's another one of the programs that we do, is all of our bulk, the farmers and any off-site bulk fuel. This is just a picture of this happens to be our quantity control scale. So we have 25 pounds even on there with our standards, and it's reading 5 thousandths over, which is well within tolerance. But we have to double check, and this is tested by the state as well, and sealed by the state before we can use it for any sort of enforcement work when it comes to quantity control.
Chuck, on these gas pumps, how many tests are you actually doing? I mean, if you go into a gas station that has 12 pumps, you're testing each one of them?
Well,
each pump because you have 4 grades, say, then that means 20 tests?
There's a fast run and a slow run for every grade. So that one gas pump that we were looking at, there would be 8 tests for that side. For pump number 7, which that was,
okay,
there would be 8 tests required for that.
Okay, and then would you test other pumps in that same station?
All of them.
So
yes.
is this like
once a year?
Once a year. So this is like something that one of our employees does constantly, because there's a lot of pumps in our. I mean,
it's 1,700, I think.
Yeah.
1,700.
Yeah. Yes, it's not a full-time job, but it's the bulk of the work.
Wow. And how much discrepancy do they find? I mean, I don't know how to quantify that, but
right.
But is it? I mean, do they find 1 a week, 2 a month? What is the?
It would depend on the workload and these the monthly or weekly workload of whatever they're doing, but I would guess that maybe 3 to 5% are out.
Okay.
And not all to the disadvantage of the customer. If they're to the disadvantage of the customer beyond the allowable tolerance of 5 cubic inches, then we'll place a red tag on that, and we'll actually tag that pump down, and it will not be accessible to the consumer.
Until it's put in repair.
Correct.
And then you will take the tag off, obviously.
We're going to get to the whole service agency thing too.
Yeah.
Those folks that do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So the weight kit I had there, and then this is a classic example of, this is not a picture from our county, but the individuals here, they're doing a build-up test on a checkout scale at a market. So at the very low weight ranges, we put very fine weights on. We get to 0.2 of a pound, we start bumping it up. We get to 1 pound increments, bump it on up. So it looks like they've got about 17, 18 pounds on that scale at this point in time. It's a 30-pound scale probably. and every scale in the store will get checked. And there should be a seal. There should be brought a copy of a seal. There should be a seal somewhere on this display. It might be on the back of the panel display there. It might be on the edge of the readout, the data entry. But the consumer should see a seal. And when they do see a seal, there should be some marks on it. The law requires that the inspector put the date that the device was inspected and their initials. So as we're all consumers, and we should see these seals out there, and then that's technically that is an accuracy statement for 1 year from that date.
Mm-hmm.
We took delivery of this incredible LPG prover in fall of 2011. The county purchased this, and it's been a fantastic addition to our department and to the county as a whole. We have so many people in this county that are reliant on LPG for their power. It gave us the ability, prior to that, we were either paying the state a fairly hefty fee to come in once a year and blast around the county as much as they could and then leave. And that gave us no ability to follow behind the repair agents and check their work if anything happened. It was very not the best of situations. This one piece of equipment should pay for itself in probably 6 to 7 years of use here for the county, and we've got a 25-gallon and a 100-gallon there. So the 25-gallon we use for the stationaries that have a lower volume typically, and then the 100-gallon for the trucks. When it comes to livestock scales, we have to take a little different approach. I actually am proud that we still have a rolling standard, a rolling test standard. That little Land Cruiser, every time Ray takes it out, people want to buy it out from underneath him, and it's no, this is an official piece of equipment for the county of Mendocino. But
that truck's been, or that Toyota's been around a long while, hasn't it?
Yes, and we're able to use that as a rolling standard every year, and it saves us a lot of work, and it's so narrow it allows us to actually roll right onto the deck of these livestock, most of the livestock scales. Because if we're not using this, we're having to crane 1,000-pound weights at a time off our big truck, and it's hard. It's a big time saver. Another program in weights and measures is the quantity control or price verification. So 3 fundamental elements: checking the net weight contents, or net contents, I should say, of packaged goods, a scanner survey, and then undercover test purchases. So I threw this slide up here for a number of reasons. Again, we're all consumers. So this label was generated on this piece of meat on a printing scale in the back in a meat counter, or back of a meat production facility in a store somewhere. The 2.46 pounds of steak is what's purported to be in here. The point of number of points in this slide, the tolerance for that scale is 1/100th of a pound. From 0 to 5 pounds, the tolerance is going to be 1/100th, one division. Well, that's equal to 23 cents. So if that scale is still within tolerances, but off just 1/100th of a pound, either the consumer is losing 23 cents or the business is losing 23 cents. We typically, I don't think, perceive things in that direction. This label also has, right below that little thermometer picture, there's a 0.08. This packer has actually said up front, we think that there's 0.08 of a pound of tear in this package. So the styrofoam boat and the package and the cellophane and the labeling and everything. So they're telling the consumer basically up front, 0.08 has been already taken into account for the tear, the non-meat portion of this.
You mean the tear being the packaging?
Everything other than the actual commodity
Gotcha.
that you're being charged $9.49 for.
Right.
Don't want to pay $9.49 for styrofoam.
Right.
And I know we've all had lunch. I'm not trying to make you more hungry, but this would be a situation where we walk in and do an undercover volumetric purchase. In this environment, we want to make sure that the person conducting the sale is taking the proper tear for that pint or half-pint container and the lid, and that the label that, again, gets spit out of the printing scale is accurate. Weighmaster program. So in this situation, this is dealing with the big trucks. So any given transaction, or mostly every transaction, is dealing with a high volume or a high dollar value as well. So it's important that the high volume transactions are accurate and correct. Here's a picture of Ray. So typically in truck stops, we do a lot of truck scales. So he's actually examining that the deputy weighmaster or the weighmaster are doing the proper things, and the truck driver as well, in either taking their tears ahead of time or properly positioned on the scale. And it looks like it was a good idea that they put that massive I-beam in the ground in the picture on the right, because somebody hit it pretty good. And that's a brand new light pole that he's standing next to, so maybe the two are connected, I'm not sure. Petroleum program. So again, this is mostly at gas stations, but it can be quantity issues as well. The last bullet there talks about quality assurance on petroleum products. We have a few hydrometers in the lab where we can actually test the AIP number. If you buy a quart of oil, there's a little donut, the AIP donut, that has all sorts of information on it, but it'll talk about specific gravity and things like that. And we actually do get products that are very substandard that get out there in the marketplace, and it's so we'll follow up on that. Most people take for granted, I think, the advertising signs. You're always looking for the same size letters in the same easily read locations. Well, we make sure that that's happening. So again, when we're out doing our retail meters or our gas pump inspections, we'll take another half hour, and the same person will do a petroleum inspection. And I throw the picture of that same gas pump back in because all those octane numbers, we look to make sure that all those octane numbers are there. We make sure that all the LEDs inside the price readouts are correct. Make sure we've got seals above every meter that we've tested. The word gasoline, the word diesel, things like that.
Where do we buy gas at that price?
Yeah, these are old. You can tell these are old slides. Huh?
Yeah. Either that or this is the best kept secret in Mendocino County.
Right. And then we've referred to this earlier, but the service agency or the professionals that really do all the installation and repairs. I think maybe the Egyptians or the Greeks figured out that you don't put the people who are going to certify it as accurate. You don't make them the people who can adjust the device and make it accurate. So the device repairmen, they can place the devices into service. They're required to give us 24 hours notice that they've done so, and then it's incumbent upon us to go out and actually seal the device to place occurrence. We're basically double checking their work. They have the same standards, the same mass standards, same provers that we have, and it's kind of like a double check for the consumer that everything's accurate. And then just other programs. I think the board's heard most of these topics earlier this year from me. The disaster declaration, I'm waiting to see if our rain is really done for the year. It looks like it, but with the first 3 months of the year that we've had, I think there's no way I'm going to get out from not doing a drought declaration at this point, the way the range is at this point. That's it. And I realize you guys have a beautiful fog picture back here, too, in the chambers. Are there any questions?
Yes, Supervisor Pinchas.
Actually, more of a comment. I don't know what you've done with the yellow star thistle, but in the North County, it's virtually going away.
Really?
So is it...
biological controls.
You put some bugs out there and actually something besides bugs or whatever, but it's... I don't know... I don't think it's the weather. It's just because drier years, star thistle tends to do better. But anyways, what do you attribute it to? But it's I would say it's compared to 5 years ago, it's 80% less.
Really?
Well, that's and so I think Supervisor Brown mentioned the biocontrols tend to act that way, and especially with biocontrol because with star thistle because it takes the seed is so long lived, but it takes 10 years to see the effects, and it's not an eradication program, obviously, because you've got the biocontrol population chasing the pest population, if you will, the yellow star thistle. But there were numerous biocontrols released for yellow star, and I think they're starting to have it could be that they're having a cumulative effect up there. That's good to hear.
Yeah, the establishment of the colonies as the type of biological control, this insect moves that eats the seeds,
Right.
you know, it's become well established now.
And the biocontrol, unfortunately, the biocontrol program was completely defunded at CDFA 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So at this point, the counties are dependent on each other. If we have nursery sites where we have a very high population of a desirable biocontrol, then we try and communicate with our neighbor counties and see if we can go harvest some of those and bring them in. It's a whole procedure, and trying to get an agreement with the landowner not to disturb a site that has a weed on it, but we don't want them to burn it or we don't want them to graze it. We want that biocontrol to get established. So,
Other questions of Chuck? Yes, Supervisor
Actually, I
Brown.
don't have a question, but I do want to give you and I have talked about this, a letter about device registration invoice, and so I do have it here for you.
very well. And I forgot one of my major points I was going to try and raise today, and that reminded me. In 2012, we were able to test virtually all of the commercial devices in the county, and that hasn't happened. We came close in 2011 and had done less than 2011 in the past. I'm very proud of that. I told 14 months ago when I was appointed as Ag Commissioner, I told the staff, I said, look, we really need to get the devices checked. Our business community is paying the device registration, paying to support the device registration program. We perform a fairly diagnostic environment for all these devices when we go out. If they're fine, we put another seal on it and we go away. If there's any issues, we can let the device owner know that. And these mechanical devices, they tend to slow down, and that's to the disadvantage of the owner. So anyway, thank you. And I'll grab that.
I have a question, Chuck. Did the grapevine moth quarantine result in more grapes being processed in county as opposed to being sent out, because obviously they couldn't be sent out? So was that good for the local economy?
It was good for the local economy in that the wineries deferred to purchasing more local grapes. In that regard, I think it didn't really prevent movement. There were conditions on movement out.
Oh, so even during the quarantine, grapes were moved out?
Yeah, there were conditions, but they were able to move under some pretty strict conditions.
So was there a net increase in county economic activity?
I think the wineries probably processed the same amount of fruit. There was a deference of the wineries to look for local fruit. I guess I would call that a plus.
Yeah.
There were more contracts, if you will, available to local fruit instead of going out to the more heavily infested counties at that time. So that was a plus, for some of the growers at that point.
Well, how many counties were under quarantine?
At one point in time, we had 9 counties under quarantine. Currently, we only have Napa, portion of Solano, and a very slight portion of Sonoma, basically in the hills, the eastern hills of Sonoma, where the Sonoma-Napa border is. So the majority of the counties have dropped out, with them being taken off the Federal Register in February or March of this year.
Other questions? Okay, I
Thank
don't
you.
see any questions, so thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I am going to entertain a request to make a public comment from Mr. Sakowitz regarding item 5C, which was the RCRC item, and I think John wants to inform us of some of the positions of RCRC that might give us pause, even though we've already approved going forward and becoming a member of RCRC again. Go ahead, John.
Thank you for that courtesy, Chair Hamburg.
Unless we don't approve the budget amount in our budget hearing.
That's true. We can still pull it.
This might run a bit over 3 minutes, but I'll
Try
do my
to be close.
I'll do my
We've got
best.
a lot of closed session ahead of us.
Good afternoon, Chair, Supervisors, County Council, County CEO, John Sakowitz, Ukiah, speaking as a private citizen only. I realize that this deal with the rural county representatives of California is probably a good deal for us. We're getting a lobbyist in Washington and Sacramento on the cheap here. But I did want to point out some, what I believe are some major inconsistencies between our county, particularly on some of our environmental policies and RC. I received this packet from Greg Norton, who is the CEO of RCRC, and the pages are not numbered, but I'll go through it as quickly as I can. In general, it would seem to be a very pro-business platform by RCRC, and there may be some elements of their policy principles that are at least moderately anti-environmental. Concerning biotechnology, RCRC has no problem with what they call the adventitious presence of unintentional low-level presence of transgenic material in foods. They would seem to be completely unaware that our county has got an ordinance in place for GMOs, and that our county was in fact a leader in opposing GMOs. Furthermore, RCRC supports policies relating to the state funding in our universities that provide research and development of technology for biotechnology in GMOs. So that would be one, I believe, inconsistency with what this county's general views are on the subject. Concerning climate change, RCRC states that while there are scientific uncertainties with respect to the cause and effects of climate change. Again, I think there are probably many people in this county who feel that it's unequivocal evidence that greenhouse gases are causing climate change. Again, somewhat of a pro-business, anti-environment platform. Concerning medical marijuana in the workplace, it would seem that RCRC does not view medical marijuana patients as patients with the right to prescriptions, and would do nothing to oppose the Federal Drug-Free Workplace Act, which requires that federal grantees and contractors to certify that they are drug-free, including marijuana-free. Concerning the military presence in economic development in their economic development section, RCRC recognizes the importance of the defense industry to California's economy, and in general, they are in favor of having a military presence because of its environmental impact in counties. Concerning the technology section of economic development, they support the demonstration of new technologies in rural counties. So I'm left wondering how they would feel about the Navy's testing of sonar offshore Mendocino County. Concerning biomass, in their energy section, RCRC supports incentives that would encourage biomass to energy usage. Again, I think there are many people in this county who feel that biomass is best left where it is.
Okay, John, I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
Yes, sir. Concerning nuclear power, they consider nuclear power to be part of the solution. Concerning CEQA, they want to streamline CEQA and would seem to want to take some of the limits that would challenge non-compliance with CEQA regulations.
Okay, John, you about done?
Yes, sir. One or two more things here. Concerning natural resources, the Endangered Species Act, they would be in favor of supporting a more comprehensive approach, and they would be opposed to the single species approach. Again, I think there would be many people in this county that would oppose that. There are about 12 areas of concern here, and I would be happy to, if you re-agendize this item, I would be happy to go through this in detail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sakowitz.
You just made my argument for wanting to join.
I'm not surprised to know that they're a conservative group.
No, I'm not either. Fortunately, there's some other areas, anyway, I don't want to get into it. Okay, I think that takes care of it. No, I'm sorry, we have something else that we didn't do.
We did kind of skip over item 5B. I don't believe there's anything to discuss on the matter, but we should just...
That was my assumption. Is there anything, Ms. Angela? Okay, then we will adjourn to closed session, where we will have a conference with our labor negotiator, a conference with legal counsel regarding 2 cases, and a conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation.
And could we either have 6 minutes or start with labor?
We.
And Mr. Chair?
Yeah, let's,
Don't wait for me.
It's done?
okay, Supervisor, we will start at 10 minutes to 3.
That will be the day when you make me cry. That will be the day when you take a...
Erica back there, so we have 3. Okay, the board is back in session, having completed its closed session today. And with respect to our labor negotiations, the board gave direction to staff on that item. We also discussed 2 cases in which we're involved in litigation. And with respect to the litigation related to the subpoenas that were issued on October 23rd of last year, County Counsel has a statement that he would like to read.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The Mendocino County Board of Supervisors and the United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of California has reached agreement on the nature and scope of documents to be provided to the federal grand jury pursuant to the subpoenas of October 23, 2012. The information to be provided will not include personal identifying information involving individuals. This consensus is reflective of the law enforcement needs of the United States Attorney's Office, as well as reflecting the public policy goals of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors. The scheduled hearing on April 16, 2013 will not be held in light of this consensus.
Okay, thank you, Mr. County Counsel. With respect to litigation involving the Coast Action Group, the board gave direction to County Counsel with respect to the completion of that case. And one other item regarding, what's PTAF stand for?
Property Tax Administrative
Property Tax Administration. The board also gave direction to staff on that item. And with that, we are adjourned.